na wagusu nini wamegusa babaya na makavu lazima wachuchume wameingia cha kike cha kike wameingia cha kike cha kike wameingia cha kike kwa penzi letu cha kike lazima wachuchume cha kike kwa penzi letu cha kike
Makokote Abutale Don Mendes Bajuni H Bajuni
chumbani enesi unipatia panado kujenga za Messi na mashuti ya Ronaldo yani ndani nikiingia tu anachukua anaweka wa kwenye gari anachukua anaweka iwe jikoni varandani anachukua anaweka wa doze anachukua anaweka ndani Dar es Salaam joto toaleso jipepe oya Kongo joto toaleso jipepe oya Mose Kunambi jipepe Ricardo Momo jipepe oya Mama Dangote jipepe ndo nifumbwe jipepe chu jipepe chu jipepe ani chu jipepe chu jipepe
Nase Joseph Berthier Nase Banalobi Nase Kaya Musha Tule Fukama Mwana Fukama Diamond Fukama Quadra Fukama
Personally Personally, I rock your body. I promise you go home, you won't tell daddy. I give it to you like you never had it. Screaming, church, like speaking Chinese. Now waiting me this, back a boom boom. Now waiting I see Zaga, but she know one me. She talks so she know one leave. I know go lie, the things within my mind. When I see you dancing, girl, you got me high. And if you wanna try, make a good day tonight. Cause I'm in the mood. As long as you feeling the groove, I deal with you. Personally, I go deal with you. Personally, I go deal with you. I go deal with you. Personally, professionally, I see what you're doing intentionally. Get me want it physically, so give it to me radically. Emotionally, psychologically, you're turning me on biologically, sexually, dramatically. And she talks so she know what I know go lie, the things within my mind. When I see you dancing, girl, you got me high. And if you wanna try, make a good day tonight. Cause I'm in the mood. As long as you're feeling the groove, I go deal with you. Personally, I go deal with you. Personally, I go deal with you. I go deal with you. Yeah, exceptionally. The reason is spiritually. Money speaking so drastically, magically, internationally. Habatically. Grammar, now for dictionary. Saga, but she know one me. She talks so she know one. I know go lie, the things within my mind. When I see you dancing, girl, you got me high. And if you wanna try, make a good day tonight. Cause I'm in the mood. As long as you're feeling the groove, I go deal with you. Personally, I go deal with you. Personally, I go deal with you.
Baby, follow my command, like zombie. Go down on me, you with your coca body. Follow my command, like zombie. Go down on me, you with your coca body. Cause this your milky for front enough for me. Hold on for me, I no go do me corny. And if you're milky na fighty, I saw me to look. Gelato honey, oh baby, smile deep, deep, deep. Baby, gonna, waka waka when you enter my licha. Baby, gonna, will you give me sugar, wala. Macho Mona Lisa, 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 Macho Mona Lisa.
Mona Lisa, go sweep you off your feet. What up, what's up? She said, make some time for me, time for me. See for this life, me and you tap like hush for me. We walking next there, please show them your best. Baby, hope you know you light to my day. Girl, you know you're all that I need. Give me your love, you can't run away. I can't deny. One bag of man, them one come try. But my love just takes you high. All of them I talk about you and I. Nobody listen to them loud. I get butterflies when I see ya. Oh yeah. If I'm in love, it's for a reason. Oh yeah.
Gonna, waka when you enter my licha. Baby, gonna, will you give me sugar, wala. Macho Mona Lisa, 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 Macho Mona Lisa. Yeah.
Classic.
Back then when I was a new youngin', Charlie, you were trying to run on me. I've been going on my own. I've been doing things unknown. It's the day one, you running right back. Say the drama, you running off track. It's a one life, you tell me one life. One time, you tell me one time. Open your eyes, baby. Can you be wise, cause I'm a pride, baby. I'm on the way, I'm on the run, baby. Leave me alone, take it back now. I put you on it. Say you want chance to hold it on me. I feel now hold it back. Turn you right around, take it my way. So tell me what you need from me now. I'm not what you need to be now, cause I'm done with it now. No more damages now. Say, tell me what you need from me now. I'm not what you need to be now, cause I'm done with it now. No more damages, no more damages. Back then when I was a baby girl, I was yours and you were my world. Tell me what you wanna do for me now. Take you down and I will hold you to run my race, cause you run it right there. Run my race, cause you take it right there. I've been down, I've been running right there. I've been out, could you take it back there? Pull up tonight, I might be risky. But me stomach, forget the whiskey. But you still wanna get back with me. You tryna be the one and deal with. Don't got my phone, you're not in my band. You missed the way in not the one chance. I live my life, don't need you with me. Yeah. So tell me what you need me now. I know what you need to be now, cause I'm done with it now. No more damages now. So tell me what you need from me now. You know where I need to be now, cause I'm done with it now. No more damages, no, no. So tell me what you need from me now. I know what you need to be now, cause I'm done with it now. No more damages now. So tell me what you need from me now. I know what you need to be now, cause I'm done with it now. No more damages, no, no. No more damages.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. We are back with day 2 of the Menstrual Health Symposium 2023, brought to you by UNFPA and the African Coalition for Menstrual Health. First off, let's make some noise for our opening entertainment from Safro Maramba Band, another exciting way to open the events for today. You know, I used to play the xylophone, actually.
Hey.
My name is Daniel Hansen, and this is my co-host, Stephanie Lobo. Stephanie, happy Africa Day.
Thank you, Daniel, and happy Africa Day to you and everybody watching, and it is great to be back here with you today. Just to remind everyone, participants will not be able to unmute themselves for the duration of this meeting. So please type your comments and questions in the chat and we'll forward your input to the relevant people.
That's right, Stephanie. We'd love to hear your stories and your thoughts. So why not get things started by saying hello in the chat and tell us where you are watching from. We also have interpretation available in English, French, and Portuguese. So if you would like translation, please click the interpretation button in Zoom and select the language you want. And please remember that we are live streaming the entire event on the UNFPA YouTube channel. So if the meeting is full, please ask your colleagues to join us over there. The YouTube link has been posted in the chat, so check it out. Finally, please feel free to post about this incredible event on the socials, on our social media. Tag us at UNFPA SRO using the hashtag Menstrual Justice, African Menstrual Health, and MH Symposium 2023.
And now we have a busy program, so let's kick things off with our first session entitled Advocating for Increased Unlimited Access to Climate-Friendly Menstrual Products for Sustainable Gender Equity in Humanitarian Settings. Your moderator for the session is Mary Grace Sande, Lead Africa Coalition on Menstrual Health Humanitarian, ACMH, Humanitarian Uganda. Mary Grace, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, organizers, everyone, participants, and all attending. Happy Africa Day. Yes, we are advocating for increased unlimited access for climate-friendly menstrual products for sustainable gender equity in humanitarian settings. This session, we highlight the unsustainable menstrual products usage that leads to the exploitation of girls and women in humanitarian settings and how it has affected the climate and environment through unsustainable disposal. Our panelists will share stories of the challenges in integrating climate-friendly menstrual products and cultural product practices and at the local level to improve menstrual health, including collaboration with local large government manufacturers to cost-effectively produce reusable products. This session will also include a discussion on the impact of the African Coalition for Menstrual Health and assessing the progress made in implementing the call to action. I take this opportunity to introduce to you our speakers, and I will start with Gold Watts Anis, Manager KPMG. She will share the highlight of the technical brief on humanitarian settings. The floor is yours, Anis.
Thank you so much, Mary Grace, and good afternoon, esteemed colleagues. It's so exciting to be back here again after such a powerful first day of the Menstrual Health Symposium. My name is Anise Goldwatts, and I'm from KPMG Norway, and I'm here to just provide some key highlights of a recent technical brief that we composed on humanitarian settings. So the brief was mainly informed by a rapid scoping review, where we gathered evidence from academic and grey literature published from 2018 to 2023. And so I will just go through some of the key findings or highlights that emerged. So basically, what we found from the recent available and existing evidence is that barriers to accessing menstrual products reported in humanitarian settings were largely identified having to do with availability and affordability. And although many humanitarian organizations and other agencies distribute dignity kits, which contain menstrual absorbents, soap, underwear, other necessities, sometimes these dignity kits were not delivered to all. For example, one study found that in settlements and camps in Uganda, Kenya, and Zimbabwe, access to absorbents was high in comparison to in South Sudan, where it was considered low. Additionally, affordability, as we discussed in depth yesterday in the other panels, is another barrier in accessing menstrual absorbents, and this is particularly relevant in humanitarian settings because there's often limited financial resources and restricted opportunities where individuals can earn livelihoods. So therefore, this was cited as a financial limitation and can also lead to early marriage in cases where a young girl reaches puberty and her parents cannot afford menstrual products. Other reports also described instances of women who sell their food rations, relief or household items, or engage in transactional sex to be able to afford menstrual absorbents or menstrual products. We also found in the literature that there were challenges with access to water and sanitation facilities that were identified. For example, in refugee camps and settlements, there's a major challenge where things like bathing, changing, washing, drying, or disposing of menstrual products can be very difficult. And female refugees often have to share sanitation facilities with men, multiple households, or strangers, which can be associated with an increased risk for sexual harassment, sexual and gender-based violence, in addition to psychosocial stress. In addition to that, increased stress that is generated by having to live in a humanitarian setting or generated by humanitarian emergencies might also impact menstrual disorders. And menstrual stigma and lack of information in humanitarian settings may further prevent women, girls, and people who menstruate from seeking the correct medical attention to get a proper diagnosis and or treatment. This was particularly highlighted in one qualitative study coming from Uganda, which demonstrated how social support from family, siblings, or peers and teachers were key in alleviating some of those challenges. So here again, we can see how lack of knowledge about menstruation prior to menarche also can be a limitation in understanding the changes in puberty. So where adolescent girls in refugee settings might report that knowledge about menstruation prior to menarche is not discussed at home, and then there's a lack of educational opportunities so that they can properly understand what needs to be done to maintain menstrual health. And finally, I just wanted to close with mentioning how these challenges were further amplified for people with disabilities, their caretakers, unaccompanied or orphan girls and adolescents who menstruate, Indigenous groups, and those with minority status. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anis. That was beautiful. And everyone has had it. Availability, affordability. Look at people who cannot manage their own life. The disabled, people with disabilities are not happy. So that's where we are going. And I'm taking this opportunity to now set the ball rolling after KPMG, Anis, and we welcome Lilian Vagala, Regional Director, IRISE Institute of East Africa, to share her opening remarks of this session. Lilian, the floor is yours. We have a pre-recording.
As preparations to celebrate the Menstrual Hygiene Day on 28th draw closer, the African Coalition on Menstrual Health and the UNFPA have convened this symposium on menstruation in humanitarian setting and climate change. There is increasing recognition of the critical role of safe and dignified menstrual health and hygiene for women and girls in humanitarian setting if they are to contribute meaningfully in the climate change management agenda. Today we will be delving in to reflect and share our thoughts as stakeholders on how we can increase opportunities for increased access to sustainable menstrual products for women and girls in humanitarian setting as they manage their periods with dignity. And this is intended to reduce the impact of waste disposal on the environment. As we establish the fact that access to menstrual products that are sustainable in humanitarian setting will help address some of the effects of climate change, different speakers will unpack the social cultural effects and practices that we have seen reoccurring in these such communities affecting our environment. And so I urge you to listen in as we commit as a group for advocating for the integration of access to sustainable menstrual products for women and girls in humanitarian setting in order to reduce the effects of climate change. Our main focus for the session will include the following objectives. 1, highlighting the unsustainable menstrual products usage that leads to the exploitation of girls and women in humanitarian setting and how it has affected the climate and environment. 2, sharing the situation in Southern Sudan and other humanitarian areas that will include natural disasters such as flooding and conflict. 3, discovering how local menstrual health enterprises can collaborate with local large garment manufacturers to cost-effectively receive an unending supply of pre-cut reusable liners. Sharing high-impact practices and emerging evidence on what works to improve access to menstrual health. Acknowledging the impact of the African Coalition for Menstrual Health and assessing the progress made on implementing the call to action. In conclusion, inadequate menstrual health management has important environmental impacts. And as speakers of this symposium take stage, you will observe the linkages between the two. Access to single-use menstrual products is readily available for those who can afford and preferred more over environmentally friendly reusable menstrual products, such as menstrual cups and reusable pads. However, in humanitarian setting, the reverse is true, exposing women and girls to poor and unhygienic conditions. Some socio-economic and cultural contexts, like emergencies, individuals might not have the ability to choose access or surely use the reusable menstrual products. Nevertheless, when people have access to safe water and sanitation and hygiene services, disposable methods, use of reusable menstrual products in the long run can benefit menstrual health, equity, and the environment. I want to call upon everyone on the call to listen in and enjoy the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lillian Bagala. That was spot on. Sustainable products. And when you look at the space which they share as the people in humanitarian contexts, whether it is famine, whether it is conflict, it leaves a lot to be desired. And we need sustainable products that can help. Surely, even if education is there, but when a girl is seen menstruating, she will definitely not go. If her dress has been bitten by rats because of the blood stain, she will definitely walk nowhere. She will remain inside. I have the pleasure of calling in Dinato Emmanuel Ishaku, Executive Director of Asham Girls Women Youth and Community Development Network from Nigeria. What will she be giving us? The relationship between menstrual health in a humanitarian setting, climate and resilience. It is worth listening to. Dinatu, the floor is yours.
Thank you for this rare opportunity to be speaking on this platform. My name is Dinatu Emmanuel Ishaku, the Executive Director of Kasham Girls, Women, Youth and Community Development Network. The relationship between menstrual health and climate change in humanitarian setting is something I'm happy to speak about, seeing that there are a couple of reasons, a whole lot of reasons that are tied around the challenges faced in humanitarian setting. One is diversity. The diversities of those in humanitarian setting is something that we cannot take away from them, seeing that most of them comes in with their thoughts, with their ideologies about lives, with their philosophies about lives, with their taboos, especially as it concerns menstruation. Now, I was opportune to meet a lady that was super excited because her flow stopped. And she was all over the place. She was jumping. She was excited. She was announcing it. Oh, you can speak to me. Oh, I can join your queue. You can relate with me. I no longer see my period. Why was it? Because of the challenges she was facing, just because she was seeing her menstrual cycle. And bullying and stigmatization in humanitarian setting, just because female adolescents or women are menstruating, is something that has affected many women and has really cost them so much. Now, why was that lady from my first story excited? Because she thought she was finally free from bullying. She was finally free from stigmatization. Now people could see her first as human, not as a woman that is menstruating, because she will have access to queue, seeing that most times some of them, when they are menstruating, they cannot even queue for food. It means if you are menstruating, you will have to starve for the period of days just because you are menstruating. Now, the effect of bullying in humanitarian setting and stigmatization is something that cannot be overemphasized. Now, the relationship between climate change and menstruating in humanitarian setting, I will target to disposal of those sanitary pads. We all know that those interventions does not really come every day. So distribution of sanitary pads could maybe last in just a period of 6 months. So what happens after the period of 6 months? Or what happens when those women have access to sanitary pads? How do they dispose it? It will interest you to know that some of them pile those sanitary pads and tie them inside polythene bag and hide them under their bags. Why? Because of stigmatization and bullying. While some of them hide it inside bush and burn it. Some even throw it in their water drainages. Some throw it in their streams, which eventually have effect to climate change or could be possible triggers to climate change. Because sometimes when they go to burnish in bushes, it might lead to fire outbreaks that they cannot control, and of course they will run away because nobody wants to be seen as the person that starts up a fire. And as the fire cannot be controlled, who knows what harm it might do, and of course it has effect to climate change. Now, my call about this to donors is to support us, the civil society organizations that are engaging these women, engaging this community, engaging this humanitarian setting, to support us, build our capacities, and for government to build policies that will enhance distribution of those products and more education and sensitization. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be speaking to on this platform, and I am super excited, and thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Wow. Here goes Dinatu Emmanuel Ishaku from Nigeria. And you can see how people in internally displacement camps are having it rough. They do not have anywhere to dispose in water, which they are also taking home for cooking. And the players need to do a lot in giving out knowledge. You can imagine somebody very sick, does not have the knowledge, does not have an idea that she's very sick, and she does not have anyone to help because they keep quiet. And also, burning of bushes, it can burn the whole village and they end up in prison. Yet they are already in displacement or in conflict. This is very good. And now I go to Emanuela Duatuka Ngoni, President Afriana, South Sudan. She is going to let us know what's the cause and effect relationship between climate change and humanitarian crisis, giving a case study in South Sudan, the crisis. Welcome, Emanuela Duatuka, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mary Grace, for this opportunity. I'm very glad to share the effects and cause relationship of climate change and humanitarian crisis on menstruation in South Sudan. As menstruation to be well known as the onset of puberty, indicating the body is mature, leading the path to reproductive health, meaning we cannot talk about family planning, contraception, safe motherhood, or even any other component of sexual reproductive health and right without mentioning menstruation, making it the base and foundation of human reproduction. In South Sudan, however, until date, menstruation is still being considered as a taboo and cannot be spoken about publicly. And in South Sudan, we have 1,000 number of people, including women, living within poverty lines, making it hard for them to access necessary services, making other services not to be prioritized as dictated by their cultures, with menstruation being at the forefront. You find that in most cultures, girls and women are not allowed even to wear pants, leave alone using of reusable sanitary pads. And in the context of climate change conditions whereby you find that it is over raining or it is flooding, women and girls tend to face it very difficult in the choice of product to use. Thank you very much, the moderator and the team, the tech team behind the success of this online meeting. I'm from South Sudan, and I would like to bring forward on this session the component of how climate change and humanitarian crisis is impacting menstrual health within South Sudan. As it is well known that menstruation is the indication of maturity and the stage where a girl enters into puberty, meaning leading the path to reproduction. Whereas we cannot talk of family planning, contraception, safe motherhood, or even other related sexual reproductive health and rights component without mentioning menstruation. However, in South Sudan, for decades, menstruation has been considered as a taboo and cannot be spoken of publicly or even practiced. And this has led a lot of women into situations where they find themselves in stigma, trauma, and even depression, not being able to participate in activities, not being able to hold their daily household duties, as they're considered unclean and should not be mingled as part of the society. And this has also led many women to leave their jobs, many girls to drop out of school, and even others to miss their classes that leads to failure in the end of the day. And linking it down to climate change, South Sudan has been implicated by climate change in areas of Jonglei, Warrap, Unity State, and Upper Nile, whereby most women and girls have been displaced due to destructions caused by flood. Their houses have been destructed, their income activities have been destroyed, even they cannot now access to menstrual health products. And that also led them to various challenges, including gender-based violence, whereby most communities in South Sudan are expecting women to be breadwinners and to provide for their families. And if they do not, they are beaten and they are physically abused. So most women tend to turn into activities like firewood selling and even vegetables, selling of vegetables in the market, which sometimes due to climate conditions, those vegetables are even washed away. And you find that in South Sudan, with the rising economic conditions, a battlefield can cost at 500 SSP, and a sanitary pad costs around 1,000. So you can imagine a woman in that situation who needs to provide for her family and also needs to buy for herself a sanitary pad. What kind of situation will she be in? Will she choose to buy a sanitary pad or rather to feed her family? So this condition puts these women into very difficult situation, whereas other parents tend to now send their children, their girls, into child marriage because they cannot afford to buy for them a sanitary pad, and they consider it to be costly, and they rather go to take care of their families, and that is considered to be what girls are meant for, to reproduce and to be married off, but rather not to study. And this also led so many girls into abusive marriages and even exposes them to fistula, as they are married off at a very young age and their bodies cannot hold their babies. And coming down to conflict, which is the biggest driver to humanitarian crisis within South Sudan, that is normally caused due to unfriendly political environment, intercommunal clashes, and even cattle raiding, where millions of people have been displaced from their settlements, others driven into the nearby countries, while others ended up in the IDP camps, internally displaced people's camp, whereby they cannot access proper services, leave alone menstruation. Whereas in conflict, most humanitarian actors, most organizations tend to focus on other humanitarian services, leaving out menstruation. As for decades, menstruation has not been prioritized into so many programmings. And among the services that are normally provided, there are food, oil, and other factors, but menstruation has really not been prioritized. I think some of the partners that take into consideration in giving dignity kits to women within the IDP camps, however, there's still not enough and a lot needs to be done. Most women within the IDP camps, as the IDP camps include so many communities that are coming from different backgrounds and having different cultures towards menstruation, that also increases the levels of stereotype and stigma to the women when it comes to menstruation. And you find that they are exposed to unsafe environment, whereby they cannot access proper wash facilities with clean water for them to clean themselves during menstruation. And as also on top of it, still livelihood becomes a challenge, whereas they cannot be able to purchase menstrual products and other products that could help them during menstruation. And also, girls drop out of school due to early and unintended pregnancy that is caused due to lack of information from menstruation, and also disruption from the conflict that are normally occurring within the regions. And also this also had exposed so many girls into committing suicide, since they cannot accept to be married off to men of older ages, or to those who they do not love. And this also led young girls who have been raped during those conflicts to bear children that are not of their interest. And that increases the suffering even when it comes to raise those children and educating them on sexual reproductive health components, which they also do not have information of. And looking at the component of women within the IDP camps and those ones who cannot actually access to safe environment for them to be able to clean themselves during menstruation, they can be exposed to other factors of rape, as in so many other communities, women are not actually allowed to use sanitary products like wearing a pant or even using the disposable pads. So they have to go out to look for other materials for them to use during the menstruation, or others even need to sit down on a small hole until when the period is over. And this exposes them to so many challenges, including animal bites in the forests, including rape from people, from strangers, and others also get to be caught by stray bullets in case of conflicts. So humanitarian crisis has also affected negatively menstrual health within South Sudan, as humanitarian actors also who tend to reach out to those IDP camps tend to die on process, as the country in most places is not secure. So climate change and humanitarian crisis has implicated negatively menstruation in South Sudan. As also, in addition to that, we do not have enough data. We do not have how many people. We do not know how many people within those IDP camps, or those ones who are displaced by climate change, climatic change shocks, or those who are impacted by war, are having the pads or not, are having access to proper menstrual health management or not. And the data that could also inform us to come up with proper interventions to reach out to women and girls from different locations, from different regions, with specific products that could help them in their various setting. And that also has acted as a challenge for most of the partners that wants to now prioritize menstruation into their programs, as to also reach the girls within those affected settings. Currently, most of our South Sudanese have been affected negatively by the ongoing conflict within Sudan, on which you have detainees that are in Fallujah,
suffering in different ways. There is no clean water, as the water in Fallujah has been polluted due to the oil, where you cannot drink and you cannot even wash yourself as it is itchy. And you can just imagine if that context can affect people even in drinking and washing. How about a woman who is menstruating? So women in conflict zone have been implicated negatively, whereby they really cannot focus on menstruation, but they only focus on how they can flee and get a safe space for them to cover themselves and flee away from the conflict, and to get how to eat, to get water to drink, but rather not think of menstruation, not knowing that menstruation, even in wars, even in sunshine or rain, it continues, it still happens. But all this cannot be put in place. No one puts it in mind. No one thinks about menstruation, even in the conflict setting. So all this has really affected women in South Sudan. The people in Fallujah, live alone women, live alone girls, live alone children, they are dying because they do not have services. And when a humanitarian asks about that, trust me, they won't consider a pad, but rather they'll consider giving people clean water. They'll consider giving people food for them to survive, leading them to the next day, on which menstruation will never be put in mind. So my urge from this symposium that we prioritize aspects and components of menstruation in all contexts, be it climate change, be it humanitarian context, even in a normal context, as so many women are getting pregnant, so many girls are getting pregnant and dropping out of school because they do not have access to proper menstrual health commodities and even information. Girls within diabetic camps, girls even outside sleeping on the streets, they do not have access to information and products on menstrual health management. That exposes them to so many challenges. And I would urge that partners to put their hands together to ensure that we start prioritizing menstruation, for we cannot, as I said in the beginning, we cannot talk of other sexual reproductive health related aspects if we do not mention menstruation, for menstruation is the base of all human multiplication. So by putting our hands together and ensure that we prioritize menstruation, and also put laws and policies together that could protect and could address menstrual related matters, could really be of a positive impact to our women and girls. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Dwatuka Emmanuel Angoni. Yes, I had to give you 1 more minute, for it was very, very emotional. What can a woman pick first if she has to flee? It will be her baby, it will be her clothes, but she will not remember a menstrual pad until the menstruation comes. And when they go in IDPs, in humanitarian settings, refugee camps, water is a problem. Water itself and the water storage is also a problem. Now, this menstruating woman, at the end of the day, she will go to sleep without even bathing. If she goes to the nearest water source, she will have trouble, she will die, she will be raped, anything can happen. The dignity kits are given at the beginning as soon as they arrive. Within 2-3 months, they are done. But she has not even visited the first shop to look for menstrual products. Thank you very much, Dwatuka. Here we go. I have to introduce to you our last speaker, Rachel Starkey, founder and chief vision officer of Transformation Textiles in Egypt. She's right now traveling deep down in the desert, doing a lot of this work. And we are having a pre-record of her presentation. It is exciting to see what can be done to sustain menstruation with dignity and training for the next generation. The floor is yours, Rachel.
Hi, my name is Rachel Starkey. I'm the founder of Transformation Textiles, and I would like to talk with you about channeling a non-stop supply of pre-cut dignity kits. Let me give you an inside view of a large manufacturing facility in Egypt that's helping us.
This is how we do zero waste. While we are plotting our t-shirts, we put the sanitary pads right in the empty spaces where that would have been thrown away into landfills and waste. Instead, we are printing hundreds of thousands of sanitary liners. I'm at the cutting table of Alex Apparels, and I want to show you the power of Transformation Textiles and what we are doing for zero waste. What you see here is our marker of our primary products. And right here is where we're going to throw it out. And so what we're doing now is we are putting in markers for our women's dignity kits right in all the places that we would have thrown out. So now this would have been waste. It is now a product. It is a product that's going to change lives. It's a product that our training lines will be able to learn to sew.
So we're talking about an untapped resource. A garment factory of 5,000 workers generates approximately 4 jumbo trucks weekly. This equals 100 tons a month. That red truck equals 6 tons. So what you know what you're looking at. Unfortunately, most of that ends up in landfills. But there is a silver lining. Reusable sanitary solutions can be upcycled from all of the unending excess of fast fashion. We have 3 major types: offcuts, like the neck holes and in-between places of t-shirts; end bits, which is the end of the roll, a half yard that doesn't make a t-shirt, so it's set aside and discarded. Imagine channeling all of that, like the red 150 layers of reusable liners cut in seconds right beside that t-shirt, or the ends of roll pieces relayed and could be made into thousands of pairs of underwear, high quality fabrics. This also helps us to avoid labor-intensive practices of small enterprises that have to lay a single layer of fabric on a floor because they don't have a table, tracing, individual cutting. By partnering with a local garment manufacturer, your pre-cut pieces can be cut in seconds. Imagine how your staff or volunteers could then focus their efforts just on the stitching, the education, and the distribution of dignity kits. Here's some examples that we've made here that include carry bags, liners, underwear. They look really pretty. They look great. They feel amazing. And they're made from high quality garments of fast fashion. We can also pre-print with dye sublimation partners incredible pairs of underwear that don't require any elastic, just single basic machines, or even hand stitching with a needle and thread. Some of our beneficiaries, they bring to class old campaign t-shirts, like who really wants to wear a 2018 World Toilet Day t-shirt anymore? But that high quality cotton is right there, can be traced into wonderful pairs of underwear or liners, really empowering women to have as many as they want. This is also an incredible solution for disaster and emergency readiness. Large-scale humanitarian partners could have it bulk packed and shipped and sent to refugee centers or pre-distribution hubs, ready for the next crisis or disaster. So are you ready to channel your own pre-cut supply? The first steps is clicking on that link and looking at all the countries that have large-scale manufacturing right within your own backyard. We would be happy at Transformation Textiles to help you. If you can open those doors, we'd be glad to talk with them about how these partners have actually increased their business, as high-end clients are very excited to see that they are about the environment, climate change, and the social good. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And let us come to think about it this way. People who are in displacement, people who have left their homes, can be touched by kindness, can be touched by information. They wake up in the morning and sit on their verandas, waiting for the sun. Maybe they don't have much to eat or how to prepare it. But if we could go down there and teach them how to make reusable pads, their own. Then the mothers will teach the children, and the children will teach the children. You will find that we have saved the environment. The dumping of these off-cuts, because the industries will find anywhere where to dump them, that will not happen. And they will not dump them in the humanitarian settings. They will dump them in the development sectors. But the product, once put together, will reach those people in the humanitarian context, in displacement camps. And I can assure you, whenever we move in humanitarian settings, the first item we give is a knicker. How it feels walking around without a knicker is a problem. So, to all my speakers, I'm so thankful that you have put the question forward. As one participant has been saying, they are eager to hear, because it is a whole different story. They hear about humanitarian settings. Disposal, it means they don't even have clean water. Dignity, that one, they no longer think about it. So humanitarian responders need to work with communities on the ground, on the best practices in such a close-knit environment, to menstruate with dignity and to be proactive about how best to dispose of menstrual products, including disposable pads and dignified wash facilities that allow the physical and mental well-being and safety. We must look at prioritization of cultural aspects and taboos and work around them, because we cannot throw them away. And we need to look at sustainability of menstrual programs and environmental protection. What we have listened to and seen on the screen gives a clear picture that even if the contexts are looking to have similarities, the conditions therein and degree of effect can never be the same. We need to work in close partnership with all players so that we leave a strong footprint. I call upon you, all of you, to support menstruation in humanitarian settings. David, back to you. The floor is yours. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Mary Grace, and all the speakers. What a great way to start proceedings for the day. We are now going to take a short comfort break for about 10 minutes. So we will be back at 2 with our next session on products, standards, value chain and water, and sanitation and waste disposal. We'll see you then.
When I take the last slice of pastry, now I'm on the run. Loving you till kingdom come, but you drive me crazy. Send someone, still my billboard baby. Man, I get taxi, they be. You did, I mean, like by me. I just wanna be there when you need me. Baby, now your matter,
I am Siv Grayson, and I'm a third-year anthropology student. As a non-binary trans person, I feel very disconnected from myself and my body and who I am to the people who know me and the people who don't know me when I go through menstruation, because it seems kind of like something that someone else should be going through instead of myself. What would really be exciting for me is not necessarily that it would stop, but that it would be thought of differently. At the moment, menstruation is seen as something that only women go through. And it would be awesome for me if people could see how many other different kinds of people actually go through menstruation and perhaps see that process is affecting them in completely different ways. But what I realize is that it's not my body that's the issue, but rather how people gender and sex and see that body and how they expect it to be clothed. And I hope to see a real big shift in the ways that people see bodies and what menstruating in that body can mean.
I started at almost the age of 16. I was at school, so it was kind of weird, but I was expecting it because I had been having period cramps, I think from the age of 13, so my doctor told me I should start expecting my period. I did have access to information. In primary school, we were taught, I think in grade 5, about menstruations, and I think my mom also played a role in that. I was at the salon one time, and this lady was talking about how her 8-year-old is having a period. So I think, we need to start having these conversations with kids because it's happening.
My name is Wesley. I'm 19. I am studying contemporary art. Menstruation was always wrong to me from the moment it began. I was told as a kid, your menstrual cycle is the beginning of your womanhood, and you should be excited for this. And that obviously as a genderqueer kid is quite a daunting and scary idea. It's something that is quite hard to understand. Menstruation is basically a term to define menstruation and reclaim it in our own sort of way as people who bleed that are not women, because there's obviously a very common misconception that only women bleed. There's a lot on the forefront of activism for women who bleed, but men who bleed are silent, and I think it's time that silence is
I have access to menstrual products. I wouldn't say that they are affordable. I've had situations where I couldn't afford that. And so I would love for the prices to be looked at worldwide. I think it's very important, knowing that as it's something that naturally happens to women all the time, I think that it should be made more accessible and more affordable for everybody. I talk about periods with my family and my partner. It's important as we are not trying to, procreate anytime soon. So we are mindful of it with regards to safe zones or safe times, with regards to how it affects my mood and in that way how it affects him.
Integration of menstrual health into sexual and reproductive health. For years, menstruation has been associated with shame, stigma, and distress. Yet menstruation is a natural biological process experienced by over half the world's population. That's why a growing global movement of activists, researchers, UN agencies, women and girls are working together to reposition menstruation as a key indicator for well-being. Echoing the ICPD Programme of Action's definition on SRHR, expert stakeholders from around the world have redefined menstrual health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. Sexual and reproductive health and rights recognize that all individuals have the right to decide over their own bodies, to attain the highest possible standard of SRH, and to be free from violence and discrimination. Menstruation is fundamental to the fulfillment of these rights. When the human rights of all people who menstruate are met, they are more likely to experience menstruation and SRH in a safe, healthy, and dignified manner. UNFPA and partners are launching the new technical guide to support countries as they integrate menstrual health into their national policies and strategies. The guide recognizes the fundamental rights of all people who menstruate, including women and girls, persons with disabilities, transgender and non-binary persons, and women who are affected by humanitarian disasters. The technical guide will help countries and partners expand access to menstrual health services and commodities for all people who menstruate through integrating it into SRHR services by creating an enabling environment by ensuring that menstrual health is mainstreamed in relevant laws, policies, and strategies, advocating for menstrual health to be mainstreamed into universal health coverage to increase access to menstrual health products and services. Ensuring that healthcare workers and community healthcare workers are trained to address menstrual health as part of a life cycle approach to SRH, family planning, maternal health, STI, HIV, and GBV services. Advocating to ensure that menstrual health products are included on the essential medicines list of countries. Integrating menstrual health into CSE, social and behavioral communication, and community mobilization programs. Strengthening research, monitoring, and promoting continuous learning through operational research. Integrating menstrual health into SRH will remove the shame, stigma, and distress and allow all persons who menstruate across the life cycle to fulfill their hopes, dreams, and futures with pride, dignity, and confidence.
My name is Apelele Monti. I'm an internal auditing student. I do pet drives every August, collecting clothes, books, toiletries, sanitary towels, anything that could be helpful to like a girl that's not coming from like a good background or one that can't afford. From a straight guy, heterosexual, whatever, we can be like at the back and then obviously do whatever we can. When you're 14, your sister's maybe like 12, 13, and then she's going through a period, you're like, what is this? And like the parents don't really educate you on this stuff as well as like the brother or the cousin or whatever. So I feel like we need to go back to like the young stages of like boys when they grow up. Tell them this is natural.
I count money plenty, tell me the amount. No one told me love would taste like this. Got my money in my pocket like this. Bitcoin in my wallet like this. Wisdom in my knowledge like this.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that short break. Our next session is entitled Investments Along the Menstrual Product Supply Chain, Updates and Recommendations for the Health of People and the Planet. So please welcome your moderator, Dr. Mashela Muhaila Mogubudi, Jantishi Menstrual Cup Limited, South Africa. Dr. Shela, over to you.
An onset of menarche can be a very daunting experience, especially when one does not have the means to manage the menses. Like 5 million girls in South Africa and 500 million girls in Africa. I also faced the same dilemma of either missing school when I'm on my periods or resorting to using anything that I could get my hands on. And I chose the latter. But I promised myself one thing, that one day I'm going to change this narrative. I will end period poverty in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dr. Sheila Magaila Makhabudi, the founder of Gentishi Menstrual Cup in South Africa. And with me today, I'm going to be moderating with Sophia Grenvald of AfriPads Uganda. Today, let's take a moment to welcome our panelists in not a particular order. We have Leila Khalif from SNV Netherlands, based in Tanzania. Leila will be taking us through the integration of WASH into the thematic area of products, standards, value chain, WASH, and waste management. Then we'll also have our other panelist, Mr. Paulson Kasarega from DRC, representing West and Central Africa, on the studies that have been done around the standards for the development of products in Africa. And last but not least, we have Mary Nyaruwai from Kenya, and she will be representing Nyungu Africa. These are the manufacturers of biodegradable sanitary pads. Thank you, panelists, for making time to become part of this auspicious program. You are welcome. And our first speaker to take up the conversation further is Mary Nyaruwai from Nyungu Africa. Mary, the floor is yours. Please take us through what you have for us for this particular auspicious program. Thank you, Mary. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this invitation to speak at the Menstrual Health Symposium for 2023. This is such an incredible opportunity to speak about something that, affects more than half of the world's population, and I'm happy to be here. With regards to today's conversation, I'll be speaking about innovations along the product value chain. My name is Mary Nyaruwai, and I'm the founder of Nyungu Africa. We are a women-led, award-winning startup circular economy that is recycling underutilized agricultural waste of pineapple leaves and corn husk fibers into eco-friendly sanitary pads. So for context, I'm from Kenya, and Kenya is one of the countries that is mainstreaming menstrual health management. For context, we have the Basic Education Amendment Act, which gives the government responsibility to supply free and safe sanitary pads to all public schools. We also have tax exemption on inputs for manufacture of sanitary towels. We have a very robust strategy and policy document. As you can see, we are really trying, to make sure that these conversations are had, and there are also actions which are being taken towards the same. Notwithstanding, we also have a lot of gaps and a lot of challenges. Kenya, is one of the countries which is leading with teenage pregnancies, and some of these pregnancies are as a result of girls who have to trade, sex for buying sanitary pads. So when it comes to access of sanitary pads, that is a problem that we have, not just in Kenya, but globally, because period poverty is both, a health issue and also an environmental issue. So when it comes to innovation of period products, why should we be investing in period products along the value chain? So if you look at it, so this is a sanitary pad, which is it's a disposable sanitary pad. These are the most common preferred menstrual products by women. We also have a tampon. I do not have a reusable pad here, but it's also a product that is used by women. So unfortunately, for those with access, most disposable period products are of course made with a lot of plastic, which is harmful to the environment. And for those with access, now we have those ones without access who have to use unhygienic products. And when it comes to investing along the value chain of menstrual products, we're talking about a lot of products, as I mentioned before. So and a pad, if you allow me to open, has 3 layers. So we have the top layer, which we call the top sheet, and then we also have the absorbent layer and the back sheet. So each and every layer is there are manufacturers who make each and every layer that is used to constitute the pad that for menstrual management. So what I'm trying to say is it is important to invest in the menstrual product value chain because, one, menstruation is a normal biological process that women and girls have to go through every single month. So there's no point in which you're not going to be able not to just have a dead stock of these products. And number 2 is because, each stage of the value chain, for example, in our case for Nyungu, we have, farmers that we engage and then we collect this, waste from their farms. We have young people who sort the waste. And then now we have the production, we have consultants, we have material scientist consultants, and then we have to go and make the sanitary pads. So as you can see, that entire value chain from the farmer up to the end product, the end user, we have people along the value chain who are benefiting from making of a sanitary pad. So that is very, very important why we need to invest in the product value chain. So when it comes to inclusivity of period products, globally we have around 1 billion people who are have this disability, and this presents the largest minority group. So if we're talking about making menstrual health products to be inclusive, we also need to be taking care of the 3 pillars of MHM, which should be inclusive for people with disability. And the 3 pillars for MHM are menstrual products and services. We have support facilities such as toilets, and we have education as well. And when you talk about menstrual products and services, we're also talking about the disposal of this menstrual products, because one of the things that we see, and now these are the recommendations that we're seeing, is that there's a lot of awareness about menstrual products, but it must follow through with accessible ways of being able to get rid of the menstrual products. And case in point, when I look at the innovation landscape, for example, in Kenya, we have, as I mentioned before, we have a policy document, and I think policy, one of the priority action points is to be able to facilitate research, innovation for menstrual products, and also the standards that come along with the menstrual products. So there's definitely room for alternative period products that can be made. And that is one of the recommendations I would love to see going, mainstream, especially in Africa, because we have a lot of raw materials. We have a lot of biomass that can be converted to cellulose, which is one of the absorbent core for making the sanitary pads. So when we look at those ways, that is one way in which we can be able to really stimulate and catalyze innovation in menstruation. And then we also have including MHM in national policies, because I think you've had this joke where a lot of countries have very good policy and strategy documents, but when it comes to implementing them, because it's just round tables and people talk and have their nice symposiums and talk about this, but then action is not does not go together with what they said in this, policies and strategy documents. What we would like to see is we have all these menstrual health champions, and then now we cascade everything into the national policies so that it can be budgeted for. Therefore, it's very easy to monitor the progress, to see what kind of interventions that can be put to be able to see that MHM is mainstreamed along, for all the stakeholders. And finally, what I'd like to say is we should create a platform for menstrual health innovations. So what you find, I think in most African countries, we have a lot of multinational, companies which import their period products to Africa. So, and for us to stimulate manufacturing of these industries that are able to make sanitary pads, it is important to be able to have a platform where, innovations in the MHM can be able to, visit this platform or even have these technical working groups for innovations in the MHM, so we can be able to see how can we make products even more affordable and accessible. Because what you will see is these huge multinationals or even large manufacturers are centralized, and they produce this loads of sanitary pads, but they are still not they're very expensive to the women at the bottom of the pyramid. What if we try to decentralize manufacturing of sanitary pads? And that is a model that would work well, so that even women in war-torn countries, women who are marginalized, can be able to make these sanitary pads and be able to have livelihood generation and also access the period products as well. So those are the recommendations I see happening when it comes to menstrual health management. And of course, there's no need of reinventing the wheel. UNICEF, a lot of organizations in WASH, we have so many documents. We have a lot of technical working groups. We had, we are still having a lot of meetings. I think this next week, on 28th is the menstrual hygiene day. So there's a lot of advocacy on that too. So I think what we need to do is to monitor, the interventions that are happening to see which gaps we need to fill. And as also, include a lot of innovators inside the conversation. Because again, if you see that the pad that we're using now, there's very little innovation that has come with the sanitary pad. So you can imagine if we start stimulating a lot of innovators in the MHM space, it would really do us good, and of course involving men and boys in the conversation as well. So I think that investments along the product value chain when it comes to MHM are very critical, even for us to be able to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mary, for the great presentation on products, value chain, waste management, and of course, the view about the importance of really investing in these products that are not just going to be used for menstrual health management, but also taking into consideration the importance of also preserving the environment whilst actually onto this very great initiative that has been initiated. And thank you so much again for actually also highlighting the driving effects of the economic vehicle towards improving the lives of African menstruators and also ensuring inclusiveness and empowerment for all those that menstruate in this beautiful continent of Africa. And next, thank you very much again for everybody that is actually had tuned in. Next up is going to be our presenter, Mr. Paulson Kasereka from DRC. He will be presenting on the research that has been worked on regarding the standards for menstrual hygiene management products in West and Central Africa. Mr. Kasereka, the floor is yours, sir.
Eh bien, je vous salue à partir de Kinshasa la République démocratique du Congo, pour vous présenter sur le travail que nous avons ici. En fait, depuis octobre 2022 à avril 2023, ma collègue Lucie Wilson et moi-même, nous étions en train de conduire une évaluation de l'adoption et respect des normes de qualité pour les produits de santé menstruelle en Afrique de l'Ouest et centrale. Et donc, ici, je vais vous présenter les leçons que nous avons pu tirer, mais aussi les recommandations que nous avons formulées à l'issue de cette étude. Eh bien, pour ce qui est des leçons apprises, la première leçon que nous avons pu apprendre en conduisant cette étude, c'est que, comme vous le voyez sur cette carte ici, il y a des progrès qui ont été réalisés pour la création de groupes de travail technique qui sont dédiés à la santé menstruelle dans certains pays d'Afrique de l'Ouest et centrale. Vous voyez par exemple des pays comme le Sénégal, le Mali, le Niger, le Tchad, le Burkina Faso, la Côte d'Ivoire, le Ghana. Il y a des groupes de travail technique qui sont dédiés à la santé menstruelle. Bien sûr, la question de la fonctionnalité de ces groupes de travail reste encore à pouvoir approfondir, mais au moins ces groupes de travail existent. La deuxième leçon, c'est qu'en dehors des progrès qui ont été réalisés, il y a des lacunes qui existent, notamment concernant l'intégration de la santé menstruelle dans les politiques et programmes du domaine de l'hygiène et assainissement. Voilà pourquoi sur cette carte, par exemple, vous voyez qu'en vert foncé, les pays comme la Côte d'Ivoire, le Ghana et le Nigeria ont un niveau élevé de l'intégration de la santé menstruelle dans leur politique eau, hygiène et assainissement. Pour les autres, il y a encore des gaps, il y a des lacunes sur lesquelles il faudra travailler. Et la troisième leçon, c'est qu'il y a besoin de plaider pour la prise en compte des facteurs qui sont notamment la participation large et organisée des parties prenantes dans les activités, mais aussi l'appui du gouvernement aux normes et la santé menstruelle en général, mais aussi il faudra un partage d'informations au niveau régional et international et des efforts de réduction de la stigmatisation. Voilà pourquoi ici j'ai lancé un appel à l'action à travers ces recommandations pour les acteurs régionaux. D'abord, il faudra traduire en français les ressources existantes sur les normes de santé. Mais par exemple, l'ARSO, qui est l'Organisation africaine de normalisation, qui n'existe qu'en anglais, et pour des acteurs francophones qui ont besoin d'accéder à toutes ces ressources et bien d'autres. Il faudra donc créer une coalition régionale sur la santé menstruelle. Et dans notre rapport de cette étude, nous avons adapté la boîte à outils des normes et des produits de la santé menstruelle. L'équipe l'a donc fait, et donc cette ébauche devra être finalisée par la contribution des acteurs. Il faut appuyer l'engagement dans les comités techniques ISO pour les produits menstruels. Il faudra soutenir les gouvernements pour les intégrer afin que leurs politiques prennent en compte la santé menstruelle, comme je venais de le dire tantôt, et soutenir ces différents groupes de travail qui existent dans différents pays. En offrant aussi un développement professionnel et un mentorat dédié à ces domaines, ce sera pouvoir donner vraiment un coup de pouce à ces domaines. Et en fait, dans chaque pays, nous avons remarqué qu'il y a des organisations nationales de normalisation. Il faudra donc les soutenir pour catalyser leurs contributions. Voilà donc les leçons que nous avons pu apprendre et les recommandations que nous formulons pour les acteurs régionaux. Et c'est ici pour nous où je tiens donc l'occasion, moi-même et ma collègue Lucie Wilson, avec qui nous avons conduit cette étude, je tiens à remercier d'abord l'UNFPA et l'UNICEF qui nous a donné l'opportunité de conduire cette étude, mais aussi la coalition africaine pour la gestion de la santé menstruelle et tous les acteurs, notamment les personnes ressources que nous avons interviewées durant notre étude. Je remercie également tous les acteurs, notamment les fabricants locaux qui ont pu parler avec nous. Et voilà donc les leçons apprises et les recommandations que nous avons bien voulu formuler. Les rapports viennent de sortir. Je vais donner mon adresse email, comme ça vous pouvez aussi demander les rapports et l'avoir pour laisser en anglais et plus tard en français, mais aussi vous aurez les liens. Merci.
Thank you so much, Mr. Paulson Kasereka, for the great input that you have actually just shared with us and the great work that Western and Central Africa has been doing around the issues of standards developments, and of course, drawing in all the other key stakeholders that are supposed to be actually be playing a role into ensuring that which we are on about right now gets the attention that it deserves. We definitely are very appreciative of the great work that you have put into all this. And on that regard, we would like to thank you very much for everything that you have done for us during this auspicious moment. Thank you so much, Mr. Kasereka. And next on, we are having Leila Khalif from SNV, Netherlands, based in Tanzania. Leila will be taking us through the integration of WASH into the products, standards, value chain, and waste management. And she's going to be presenting on the studies that have also already been done. And this is going to be just one of those very, very important information that we need to take along with us so that we can be able to interpret it for everybody else to benefit from this. Leila, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mashela, and thank you to everyone, participants and organizers of the Menstrual Health Symposium for this opportunity. As she mentioned, my name is Leila Khalifa, working with SNV Tanzania under a program called the WASH SDG program. This is an urban sanitation program that has been running for about 5 years in 2 regions in Tanzania, that is Arusha and Shinyanga. So the program, the urban sanitation program, mainly looks at the whole sanitation service chain, from the capture to the containment, transportation of fecal sludge, and to the disposal and reuse. One key component of the program is the behavior change communication. And through this behavior change communication component, we address unsafe sanitation practices. Among these unsafe sanitation practices, we have throwing trash into the pit. So throwing solid waste in the toilet pits, which eventually affects the whole sanitation service chain. So to understand the determinants of why people practice what they practice, and here I mean why people throw the trash into pits, we did a formative research in collaboration with local government authorities in Arusha and Shinyanga to find out exactly why people practice the way they do. And this formative research was done through focus group discussions and key informative interviews with women group, religious leaders, with excluded groups in the communities. So the key interesting findings were, first of all, over 70% in both regions had unsafe solid waste disposal. And among these, over 90% among the solid waste disposed in the toilets were menstrual pads. So that got us thinking, why exactly are people throwing the pads in the toilets? So what we found out was that, of course, there's the level of access and availability of that solid waste service is not really performing, and it's not to the quality that people would like to see happening. So in every country, I believe there's a standards of how people can deal with solid waste, and there are ways that are acceptable and not acceptable. In Tanzania, especially in household level, people are not allowed to bury or burn solid waste in their premises. So the only correct way is to put it in a bin, and so that the solid waste collectors would come pick it up. So if the service is not good, then obviously the women feel like, okay, I cannot just put my pad in a bin so that I see it later on the streets or being messed with like animals and dogs in the streets. So that is one of the reasons why women decide to throw in the toilets. Also, that the custom of having a bin in our toilets is not very much common. People would have bins in the kitchen or outside, but not necessarily in the toilet, which got you thinking, okay, I have my pad here. I'm not going to go out with it. I'm just going to put it in the toilet. Also, the cultural beliefs around menstruation, which we've heard over the past yesterday, and the other presenters talking about how people perceive menstruation. And in this particular finding was that women believe that some women believe that if their pad is got a hold by someone else, they could use it to do witchcraft, and they could be barren, or all these things that people believe. So all these lead to throwing the bin, the pads in the toilet. So as under the program, we thought of different solutions and recommendations to the government that they could do to at least get the practice of throwing the pads into the bin common to people. So among those, we have technical solutions and behavior change solutions. With the technical solutions, we tried introducing dustbins special for menstrual hygiene in a public toilets. So there would be a bin for all the solid waste in the toilet, but then in the ladies' cubicles, we would have an extra bin that clearly says, store your menstrual pad here with flowers, and just to make the woman feel like, okay, this is a safe space for me and I can trust this bin to hold my menstrual pad. The other thing, and what you're seeing on the screen right now, is a vending machine, because of course women feel they don't feel comfortable talking about menstruation, especially if it happens, it could happen anywhere. It could happen in a public place, it could happen suddenly. So the feeling of having to ask for help, even to other women, sometimes can be uncomfortable. So the vending machine is basically a machine where a woman can put like 200 shilling coin and get a pad right then and there in a public toilet. It makes it easier and more comfortable and safer to access these pads. Also on the behavior change solutions that we have tried are painting flowers and colorful messages on menstrual hygiene, on how it's a normal thing, how we should be proud of it, and how if not talked about, then it could be wilted, as the flowers you're seeing. And the flowers that bloom are, basically menstruation that is comfortable and that is safe and hygienic. And also we've done radio sessions where we talk to the community about menstruation. So through this, you can really tell, like, when people call in the radio sessions and be like, why are you talking about this? I'm a woman and I'm here with my son and it's so uncomfortable and stuff. So all these things are just one ways to just kind of change the mindset of the community about menstruation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leila, for the great presentation on WASH and the integration of WASH into menstrual hygiene programs, and the importance of really getting all these important aspects together into the one goal of really, getting to reach a great environment for menstruators across all these other areas within the grassroots levels. Thank you so much, and also for indicating how in integration of all these other programs, the barriers that exist in the space of menstrual hygiene can actually be dealt with, and so that menstruators can have an environment wherein they can go through this biological process without having to have issues that are actually a hurdle. Thank you very much once more. And without any more waste of time, we would like to introduce and welcome, on behalf of ACMH, Mr. Mashoba. Mr. Mashoba, the director, the chief directorate from the Department of Women in South Africa. This is the chief directorate for social women empowerment programs. Mr. Mashoba, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Program Director. May I also take this opportunity to greet the excellencies, the dignitaries, fellow members of the coalition, all the participants that are here, and also, most importantly, to welcome those that would have been in this gathering for the first time, because since the inception of these very important interfaces, the level of interface has been improving qualitatively in leaps and bounds. We are very pleased to recognize that over the past 2 days, this has been a very sustained, very informative, very dynamic gathering. We would also like to thank the organizers, the facilitators, and also the incredible good ICT support to ensure that our program does not get unnecessarily disrupted. The issues that have been raised here, friends and colleagues, are so critical, and one does get the sense that a majority of us in this audience know exactly what to do. We know exactly what the issues are with respect to the exigencies of menstrual health as well as sexual reproductive health rights issues. What is important now going forward, in my view, is that we need to deepen the level of advocacy. We need to go to areas where we have not gone before, to open up, to broaden the frontiers of interface, mobilization, organization, and to ensure that we get a much bigger buy-in in as far as this particular issue is concerned. First and foremost, I would like to say that from government practitioners, it's got to be very, very important for us to ensure that in the way that we work in this space, that there's integration of work activities, integration of thoughts, first and foremost within specific departments that are responsible for menstrual health, and also to ensure that within governments there's a healthy interface, and that there is a good working relationship, and that there is information that runs through seamlessly, whether we speak about policy formulation or legislative formulation. That becomes very, very important for that kind of alignment. The other issue that is going to be very, very important is also that we need to ensure that we get a financial mandate. That is, all the countries that are really seeing the centrality of menstrual health to ensure that there is a budget for these activities, because without a budget, a policy or a legislative instrument is merely as good as it is written on paper. But we need to ensure that there's a financial mandate, there is a budget, no matter how small that might be. But it's important that incrementally we need to ensure that governments are lobbied to give some budget that is necessary to kickstart our programs. Of course, we would love to universalize, would love to ensure that all menstruators receive these well-needed products. But of course, it's important that we should also deepen our involvement of our partners in the UN family, NGOs, as well as CBOs. Another important issue, friends and colleagues, that I would like to also observe is the centrality of the African coalition itself. It's important that all of us that are congregated here today must know that beyond this very, very, very important conversation, we need to also ensure that we become active members of the various task teams in the coalition, because the African coalition, for it to be strengthened, for it to function optimally, it means all of us must actually work within the task teams, because those task teams are the engine of the coalition. The other issue that is important that colleagues here and very good presenters have actually indicated was the centrality of product safety within a product mix environment, that we need to ensure that as we innovate to create an array of menstrual products for menstruators, we must also underline the centrality of product safety. We need to ensure that these products are safe to use so that we avoid a proliferation of products that might harm menstruators. So it's important that, therefore, the issue of product safety becomes very, very important. Also, when it comes to the interface between menstrual health and sexual reproductive health rights, it's important to underline the importance of comprehensive sexuality education, the life orientation class at school level. That's a low-hanging fruit that we should really cling on to, because you don't have to mobilize, you don't have to organize. Those learners are in a schoolyard. Therefore, they are your low-hanging fruit to ensure that you are able to reach them. And also you have both genders, boys and girls. Therefore, you'd be having a very, very rich and interactive kind of interface. So those life orientation classes need to be transformed to ensure that they are effective and that the way in which tuition is conducted is such that it is free of conservativeness, religious or cultural dogmas, that we need to ensure that we make our learners understand menstrual health and sexual reproductive health rights without any hindrances, because a school is a center of learning and excellence. So that is very, very, very important. Colleagues also have spoken about clean water, the importance of clean water, and we are aware of the environmental changes as well, which also affect, obviously, product disposal. Whilst it might not be about menstrual health per se, but the fact of the matter is that we can make this an important economic activity, in particular for women, youth, and persons with disabilities, that as much as they are engaged in product safety, also engaged in making these products, but also they are engaged in the disposal of these products, and that women entrepreneurs, youth and persons with disabilities are at the center of the economic activity that accrues from this kind of activities. Also, the issue of tax exemption, very, very important. That is where government also must lead, but also to examine the impact of that tax exemption, whether it really impacts, so that we don't just issue pieces of legislation and then they become worthless on the ground in the hard theater of reality. And then lastly, to also indicate that evidence-based information is very important, because evidence-based information will allow us to have a bigger and better appreciation of what obtains on the ground, so that our statistics are correct, the information that we have is credible, and that we are assured that as we forge forward, we have all the relevant information at our disposal. With those words, colleagues and friends, would really like to appreciate and thank you for the participation, the dynamic participation over the past 2 days. And we're hoping that beyond this interface now, we're going to get our hands dirty. We're going to be part of the important task teams where we interface, where we come with innovations that will ensure that the issues that we talk about in this symposia actually are expressed in the reality of life where we come from all the corners of our countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Machoba, for such a valuable information that you've shared with us here today. And of importance, the very important thing that you have actually raised about centralization of programs and also the plans and the commitments going forward around the continent of Africa and the inclusiveness of everyone, every stakeholder into making sure that which we are busy with right now can actually become one that becomes very impactful in the lives of those who menstruate around this continent of Africa. We thank you so much, sir, and we note everything that you have put here today, and we are actually looking forward to very good stories to tell in the next conversations that we're going to be having when we converse again in the near future. And without further ado, I would like to call upon Ms. Anes from KPMG into giving us the closing remarks for this very great thematic area that we are busy with the entire morning. Thank you so much. Anes, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sheila, and hello again, colleagues, and thank you for providing me the space to talk about this very important area. Continuing with the overview of the recent rapid scoping review that was conducted, I just wanted to highlight some of the key findings that focused on product standards and value chains. So first, I just want to, before I begin, I wanted to say that for this particular rapid review, we actually had to incorporate some more global literature because the published literature regarding Africa was quite limited. And we identified a number of menstrual products that were used for absorbency, emphasizing that product preference and use can vary depending on availability, affordability, cultural preferences, individual choice, and can generally include disposable sanitary pads, reusable cloth pads, cloth rags, menstrual cups, cotton, wool, tampons, toilet paper, underwear alone, mattresses, sponges, and natural materials, even cow dung. So noting that availability and the use of menstrual products can vary significantly across different regions and communities within Africa. Documents also described how sociocultural beliefs, taboos, stigma have a significant influence on perceptions regarding menstrual products. For example, cultural norms dictate and how menstruation is perceived and therefore managed, which might lead to a reluctance to discuss or seek appropriate menstrual products. Some may have a preference for certain products based on cultural taboos, traditional methods for managing menstruation, or even coping with menstrual pain. I also want to highlight how it was widely reported throughout the literature that socioeconomic status has a significant influence on the accessibility of menstrual products. For example, a study in Kenya found that both individuals from high and low socioeconomic backgrounds use disposable pads. However, those from the lower economic backgrounds tended to use those pads for longer intervals of time compared to those with higher incomes. And so this really demonstrates a diversity in need when thinking about menstrual product access and affordability. Also, this is something that was touched on yesterday in the symposium, but the COVID-19 pandemic had a significant impact on on access to menstrual products in Africa. And this was due to supply chain disruptions, economic hardships, or COVID-19 related restrictions on travel and movement. Next, the literature emphasized the importance of advocacy and policy dialogues that focus on accessibility of menstrual products. And this was also emphasized by a number of speakers in the session today. So removing VAT and taxes and really kind of ensuring political commitments to providing menstrual products to women, girls, and people who menstruate is extremely important. And this is also noted that Kenya is really at the forefront in providing access to free and quality sanitary pads for young women and girls who are enrolled in public basic educational institutions. There's also a need for menstrual product standardization that ensures minimum standards that safeguard health. Kenya, Uganda, Malawi, Tanzania, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Ethiopia have standards for both disposable and reusable pads. And Ghana and Nigeria have standards for only, both disposable and reusable pads. And Ghana and Nigeria have standards for only disposable pads. However, the spectrum and quality is still quite broad. And finally, also emphasized by a number of speakers today, the commercial market for menstrual health products in Africa has untapped potential for growth. And this is especially true for countries that have an emerging middle class. Those were kind of the key findings from this scoping review, and I really thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Shella, and all the speakers. Really valuable input from everyone. We are now going to take another short break. We will be back in 5 minutes. So go out, stretch your legs, grab some refreshments, tea, coffee, or water, if you will. And our next session on research, monitoring, and evaluation. See you then.
My name is I'm an internal auditing student. I do pet drives every August, collecting clothes, books, toiletries, sanitary towels, anything that could be helpful to like a girl that's not coming from like a good background or one that can't afford. From a straight guy, heterosexual, whatever, we can be like at the back and then obviously do whatever we can. When you were 14, your sister's maybe like 12, 13, and then she's going through a period, you're like, what is this? And like the parents don't really educate you on this stuff as well as like the brother or the cousin or whatever. So I feel like we need to go back to like the young stages of like boys when they grow up. Tell them this is natural. There's nothing wrong with it, and it's not disgusting. It's just blood. Everybody bleeds, but for women, it's different. It's every month because of the cycle. For me, I feel like the government should subsidize tampons and pads and every other sanitary product, because I mean these things are very expensive. You know, put some money behind it, man. Make it free.
During my periods, I feel like, I don't want to go out, just want to sleep all day. Yeah. I started menstruating when I was 14, my first year of high school, I think. Yeah. It wasn't normal, but then you get used to it. So when I started my periods and then I asked my mother and my aunt about it, and my aunt was like, if you just stand like next to a boy, you'll end up falling pregnant because it's the period. You are a mature woman now, you're young. So they like told me if I stay next to a boy, then I'll fall pregnant because I have my period. So then for that time when I have my periods, I like won't go to any boy because I know if I stay next to you, I'll immediately fall pregnant. So that's the story they told me.
Eliza Stewart. I'm 16 years old. I'm a student at Pinelands High School, and I sell menstrual cups in my spare time. The reason I started using a menstrual cup was because of the environmental impact that the waste of pads and tampons had, especially plastic waste in the world and in our oceans is reaching a critical point where we have to make big changes. And then I did some research online and found out about menstrual cups. Most of the people I sell to actually aren't my peers. I sell to a lot of adults, but I do talk to a lot of them about it. But I found that a lot of them are actually quite receptive to the idea. It's getting the parents to approve of their children using it that's hard. I think when anything has something to do with women and their bodies, it's often criticized quite heavily. Embracing my period means to me being able to talk about it to anyone without shame. It means to just be able to celebrate it as like part of my womanhood. So I think we have to shift from using infinite pads and tampons where that we just keep making them and we actually have finite resources, and a menstrual cup and reusable pads. There are lots of different options would help with that in the future.
Welcome back to the Menstrual Health Symposium. Our next session is entitled Prioritizing Research, Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning on Menstrual Health in Africa. Your moderator for this session is Willis Odek from UNFPA SRO. Willis, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much. Good day, everyone, and welcome to this session that was deliberately designed to come just before the closing ceremony. I kindly request you to keep your eyes and minds open, because there's an old saying that what gets measured gets done. And so this, as the title suggests, we're going to spend this time looking at why it is important to prioritize monitoring, evaluation, research, monitoring, evaluation, and learning in menstrual health programs. So as part of this program, we are going to have, first of all, an overview from KPMG on research, monitoring, and evaluation in menstrual health. And then we're going to have a presentation from one practitioner working in Tanzania, giving an overview of monitoring, evaluation, and learning within menstrual health programs in Africa, looking at some of the resources available as well as their limitations. Then we will have presentations from some ongoing research studies in the continent on menstrual health, also highlighting standards and opportunities for improvement. At the end, apart from the presentation that we are going to make here, we are also keen to get your feedback, especially in as far as menstrual health research and monitoring and evaluation is concerned. So we want to know if currently you are collecting menstrual health data or monitoring and evaluation data. If so, what kind of information are you collecting? Are there any particular gaps or weaknesses that you experience? And are there any barriers to implementing monitoring and evaluation in menstrual health programs? At the end, as part of that feedback mechanism, we'll also implement a Mentimeter, which is some sort of a multiple choice survey, again, just to get your insights on areas that could be improved upon. So without much ado, I think I will start first of all by requesting Anis, who is not a stranger now, she's present in the previous sessions, just to give us a highlight of the monitoring, evaluation, and learning from the review. Now, and we kindly request you to share with us any experiences that you may have had in those particular areas. So Anis, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Willis, for that very warm introduction. So I just wanted to highlight a few of the kind of key points from this recent rapid scoping review that KPMG conducted on research, monitoring and evaluation of menstrual health in Africa. So first, I just wanted to share that the literature demonstrated how menstrual health is a really crucial component of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. However, although there is no specific goal or indicator devoted exclusively to menstrual health is still a fundamental component of reproductive health, population health, comprehensive sexuality education, educational attainment or menstrual-related absenteeism for young girls and adolescents who menstruate, gender equality, human rights, gender-sensitive water, sanitation, and hygiene, which is kind of showing how it is a critical component of so many different SDGs. This is also important to note that when kind of evaluating progress towards SDGs, that there should be a more explicit and comprehensive analysis of whether menstruation needs of people who menstruate are being met. And although there is a growing global attention to menstrual health as a health, education, and gender equality issue, unfortunately, there's still a lack of validated both qualitative and quantitative measures and universal definitions of key core concepts, including what does clean mean, what does private mean, what is safe. Therefore, there's a need to understand, evaluate, and address menstrual, and there needs to be a more evolved understanding in order to evaluate and address menstrual health. This also includes an absence of standardized measures for assessing menstrual-related interventions, which limits both the evaluation of outcomes and the advancement of effective programming. Although the literature notes that several household surveys have included menstrual health-related questions in recent years, the inconsistency across different tools and data sets poses a challenge of producing comparable regional or international estimates. Therefore, the literature emphasizes that there's a need for standardization of indicators relating to menstrual health. And although several documents described a lack of menstrual health related data and indicators across study contexts, as I mentioned previously, several studies also presented novel tools which demonstrate promise for advancing research monitoring and evaluation efforts on menstrual health, such as the Menstrual Practice Needs Scale, the Menstrual Practices Questionnaire, and other tools developed by AfriPads, Femme International, Womena, iRise East Africa Institute, and others. I just want to highlight one study that actually captured enumerator perspectives and insights from carrying out one of these large-scale surveys in Niger. And they found that menstruation was considered a sensitive women's issue in this context, but questions about menstruation, including questions about materials and locations for menstrual management, were mostly accepted and understood. And in comparison to questions that were focused on sexual practices, enumerators reported that they had much greater ease communicating these questions to potential survey respondents. This is a very important finding. And although there are a number of areas that the literature has highlighted as areas for further research on menstrual health, it is also important to emphasize that we need to develop a further understanding of how menstrual health, its determinants, and also the consequences of poor menstrual health are interlinked. And this is crucial for understanding the menstrual needs of women, girls, and people who menstruate, and also important for strengthening the evidence base. So I will just finish there, but thank you so much again for having me, and look forward to the rest of the session. Over to you, Willis. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Anis. And I think, as you rightly say, I mentioned at the beginning, what your review shows is that there are certain practices on the ground, but there's really need for standardizing indicators, standardizing practices, and scaling these up. And I think in leading us into that direction, I would like to invite our next speaker, who is Dr. Jennifer Robley. Jennifer is a co-investigator with the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine on a research on menstrual health. And she works with a firm international in Tanzania as a research and monitoring and evaluation director. So I think it will be important to listen to Jennifer and hear what she has to say in terms of the current M&E practices, including existing resources and some of the limitations that they may have. Jennifer, I'm happy to transfer the floor to you.
Sante Willis. Hello, everyone. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the monitoring evaluation of it all. So to start us off, monitoring, evaluation, research, what's going on here? And I'm willing to bet that whilst many of you understand there is a difference, maybe you're not quite sure what that difference is. No worries, we're here to clarify on that. So first of all, there are a lot of similarities. It's a spectrum with multiple domains and a lot of overlap. There's a lot of similar skill and technical requirements, such as having good indicators, good tool design and construction, good data collection, all these things. And it's not something that you can do well without at least a little bit of training or technical support. Monitoring and evaluation, or MEL, monitoring, evaluation, learning, is very project focused. It's about understanding the project or intervention, keeping track of it, if it worked, how well it worked, if it didn't work, why it didn't work. For you research experts out there, yes, this is a lower resource version of a process evaluation. Essentially, MEL is very practical, and depending on the context, available resources, it can still be done very effectively in a very low resource fashion. Research, not low resource. Its focus is often more theoretical. It's very rigorous and can sometimes be almost artificial in how it's trying to control many external factors. This way, research findings can actually be very sure that their conclusions are correct, the change or phenomenon observed is actually as a result of what we thought it was and not some outside factor. The concept of causality and how you can be certain that outcome X, for example, change in behavior around your menstrual product, is actually because of the intervention you implemented and not something else that might have happened anyway. So research is better able to attribute causality to a change or phenomenon, which then becomes useful information for programs to take into account and use. Hopefully, that's the way it's supposed to work. So why does it matter? Because it really does matter. Although if you're here, I think I'm preaching to the choir, and there's been a lot of themes throughout these 2 days around why it does matter, needing more of it. So it matters because the crux of it, good decisions around programs, interventions, funding, policy, etc., should be made based on evidence, and MEL and research provide that evidence. MEL also helps us to understand what we're actually doing. It helps us to understand if it's working, how it's working, and if it's not working, why it's not working. It's pretty common for projects to go astray in some way, you know, delays, rains, something you didn't know about, but really would have liked to if somebody had told you, all these fun things. Documenting these and the responses or solutions helps you to do better next time. Also, if the project really didn't work, which also happens, good MEL helps you understand what went wrong and ensure that it's a learning experience for next time and not a failure. Also, so that you're not wasting money continuing to do something that really isn't working very well. The next big thing is money, important for all of us NGOs. Funders generally require evidence of how their funds are being used, the monitoring, and that it's having an impact, the evaluation of it all. So consider, example, the notion that girls miss school because they don't have pads, that bogus 10% statistic about missing, and the intervention of give girls disposable pads that dominated the menstrual sector for years, which isn't saying that participation overall isn't negatively impacted by menstruation, because it absolutely is. But girls miss school for a gazillion different reasons. That statistic is false, and simply distributing disposable pads doesn't do a lot in terms of everything that menstruation entails and all the issues it can cause. Yet this persisted for years and got, relatively huge amounts of money. But now, thanks to good research and MEL, we have a much better understanding of how to design that good intervention or program and get better results. It also helps to convince funders that it's something worth investing in, that exists, that has an effect, and needs to be addressed. And the biggest thing is it makes sure the issue matters. It's one of the huge issues we're continuously seeing in that we're not being counted. The questions aren't being asked, the issue isn't being raised, the scope of the issue or even that exists simply isn't there. And to me, that's the biggest thing because we know, for example, that addressing menstrual health is considered key to achieving all 18 SDGs, and yet not a single one of those specifically mentions menstruation. Luckily, we have a growing number of resources for research and evaluation, and I've included 4 really good ones here, all fairly new, 3 tools and 1 model that we're going to look at. So first is the model, the integrated model of menstrual experience. It's a theoretical model, and you can see your antecedents here, the things that set it up, that affect then for the experience of menstruation and then have an impact across various domains of your life. The model can be used to design programs, MEL systems, because you have those arrows of directionality or causality that are really useful. In terms of tools, and Annie also just mentioned 2 of these, which is great. We have the MPNS, the Menstrual Practice Needs Scale. It consists of 36 questions, 4 subscales, or 6 for people with reusable products. And it measures how well people's needs are met around their product, their ability to change it, etc. And the scale is cool because it is need-based. So it's like, the question is, how often were you able to change your product as often as you wanted, as opposed to how many times did you change it? So the scale has been validated in several languages and settings. There's more coming. It's open access, and it has resources around usage and analysis. It is, however, 36 questions. So whilst beautifully comprehensive, it's just like, it's really long for just regular programmatic M&E. Next one is the MPQ, which is specifically focused on practices. It's from the same authors, and so it is also open access, and it is a little bit shorter, and it has different domains around the specific practices that you can pull out. The last thing is the priority list of indicators, which isn't a validated tool, but it is intended for use in larger data collection systems, and it aligns at the national level. It's translated in multiple languages, and it's not nearly as long, which is exactly what we need. And that's what I have for you currently. Remember, please, to answer all of our questions and give us information so that we can put together a resource that is hopefully useful to you in terms of your monitoring evaluation.
Great. Thank you very much, Jennifer. I think what comes clearly from your statement is that MEL, as we call it, has to be intentional, rigorous, and planned. And there have to be the right tools to use for that purpose. And your role in that is pertinent. So I want us to go to the next session, next segment of this session, where we're going to look at some ongoing research projects in the continent. And I will start with Mandikudza Tembo, who is a postdoctoral research fellow at the Health Research Unit in Zimbabwe and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Tembo, please, you have the floor.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. So I'll be presenting on the acceptability, uptake, and effectiveness of a menstrual health intervention amongst young women in Zimbabwe. So the aim of the research was to investigate the uptake, acceptability, and effectiveness of a comprehensive menstrual health intervention, which was integrated within a community-based sexual and reproductive health program called Chiedza, and it was geared towards young people aged 16 to 24 years old in Zimbabwe. Specifically, I wanted to design and pilot a complex intervention that addressed both the education and product needs for women in Zimbabwe, and then look at product choice and patterns of use over time, to look at the effect of the intervention on menstrual health knowledge, perceptions, and practices, and then the overall acceptability of the intervention within the communities. To give an overview of the sexual reproductive health intervention in which the research was embedded, it was called Chiedza, and Chiedza stood for Community-Based Interventions to Improve HIV Outcomes Amongst Youth, and it was a cluster randomized trial. The aim was to determine the impact of an integrated package of services for young people on population-level HIV viral load. It was a 2-arm cluster randomized trial in 24 clusters randomized as 1-to-1. We were in Mashonaland East, and in Matabeleland. So the package of services were geared towards both young men and young women. Specifically for young women, we had health counseling, information, HIV testing and treatment, contraception, pregnancy testing, condoms, and referral to other services. And then for the menstrual health package, we had a menstrual health package where they could choose a menstrual health product, and they were given information and also access to pain medication. So here are some of the pictures of what was given out in the community. So in the middle, we have our period pamphlet, which had information about periods, frequently asked questions around cycles, but also specific instructions on how to use the products that we had on offer, namely the menstrual cup and reusable pads. And so you'll see in the corner, you have one of our male community health workers who was doing a session on how to use the menstrual pads. So in terms of data collection, we collected data from April of 2019 to March of 2022 across our intervention clusters. Quantitatively, we had a biometric system called Symprint, and it was a fingerprint enrollment. And there you would be able to track every participant to see how many times they came to our center. At each visit, what did they take up, how old they were, whether they were female or male, and then specifically around menstrual health. Did they take up the intervention? If they did, what product did they take up? Did at any point, did they change products? And also, did they take up pain medication? Qualitatively, we also had focus group discussions and in-depth interviews with participants. So what are our key findings?
Just 2 minutes.
Number one, there was a huge uptake of the menstrual health service overall. Most of the participants that came to our centers were female, so 75% of participants were female. And of those, more than most of them, so 97%, took up the service at some point. And what did it mean to take up a service? It meant that you were either coming to get information on menstruation, you were taking up a product and information, or you were taking up a product, pain medication, and information. And what you could see is that for the most part, people took up a product, took up information, and took up pain medication. And it really showed that there was a huge unmet need for both product, support, information, and pain management when it came to menstrual health. When it came to what kind of product participants took up, we can see that for the most part, a lot of our participants took up the reusable pads as opposed to the menstrual cup. And that varied slightly with location, but it varied the most when it came to age. So on this figure, you can see that in Bulawayo, there was a higher uptake of the menstrual cup as opposed to the other areas. And we'll talk about some of the social cultural reasons why that might have been the case. But also you can see that usually if people did decide to take up reusable the menstrual cup, it was usually the older group, so 20 to 24 years old. So when we look now, because our participants had the option to take up a product, to try it for at least 3 months, and if they didn't like their product, they would have to come back with the old one and they could take up a new one. So here we're looking at, from their initial choice, did they ever swap to a different product? And for the most part, you can see that when they did swap, a lot of participants swapped the menstrual cup out and got reusable pads instead. Again, that was very much disaggregated by age. So most participants were happy with their initial choice, but when they did swap, most of them swapped from the menstrual cup to reusable pads. When we look at that discontinuation of the menstrual cup, you can see that discontinuation was higher amongst the younger age group as opposed to the older age group. When we look at why that might have been the case, we have some quotes around the uptake of the intervention, but also around product choice. So when we look at product choice, I chose the pads, and if the pads were not there, I was not going to choose the cup because I have never used a cup and I'm scared to put things down there. When I came to Chiedza, they did not have pads, so I took the cup. It was not comfortable for me because I'm still young, and so I returned it after 3 months. So here we see that there was a little bit of fear around insertable menstrual health products, such as the cup. And when we investigated it further, particularly for the younger girls, they really worried that it would affect their virginity. So this idea of inserting something and that affecting their virginity really had an impact on the kind of products that they chose. When it comes to the intervention overall, though, you could see that a lot of people really, really appreciated the intervention. Chiedza helped a lot of young people by giving us free services. Condoms are expensive to buy these days. Pads are expensive too. So having these free services was very helpful. We then looked at the effect of the intervention over time. So we followed a cohort of 300 young women, and we had them fill out a questionnaire at baseline, which is 0 months, at 6 months, and at 12 months. And we wanted to see, would there be a change in their perceptions, in their practices, and in their knowledge of menstrual health over time? And we did both a linear regression, and we could see here a mean score. So the mean score is looking at, on average, did they get questions right, or did their score improve over time? And you can see here that the knowledge and perceptions improved with time. So from baseline to 6 months, there's a huge improvement in knowledge and perceptions. And from baseline to end line, there's also an improvement. But what's really interesting about this is that from midline, so 6 months to 12 months, there's a little bit of a dip. So there's something around being exposed to the intervention, improving perceptions and knowledge, but over time that being, hindered by some of the effects of being in the community. So at Chiedza, you're learning about this, you're talking about this, but you still have to go home and contend with people who might not have been exposed to the same information and services that you have been exposed to. We also have this when we look at the odds ratio. So this is the odds of them responding positively or correctly to the questionnaire questions. And again, you can see an improvement from baseline to 6 months and baseline to 12 months, and a dip between 6 months and 12 months. When we looked at the acceptability of the intervention, we used Secon's framework of acceptability. And here we were trying to figure out, was the intervention acceptable with the participants, but as well as the providers? And overall, it was very acceptable. Many clients were very happy with the intervention and viewed Chiedza as a safe place. The intervention, particularly the menstrual health intervention, was very much appreciated by communities. No one felt that it was much of a burden, especially because they were able to get free products. Where we did see an issue was around this ethicality. So did the provision of the service align with people's values and beliefs? And you could see that there was a clear preference for pads over cups, and negative feedback from both providers and the community around giving out insertable products, particularly to younger girls. And so it's something to think about if you are going to give out reusable pads, or you're sending out menstrual cups in the communities, to really think about the context and the messaging around the kind of products that you use. We did a lot of training around the menstrual cup, and we did a lot of sensitization. So maybe some of the takeaways from this might be, within the context of Zimbabwe, particularly for teenagers, the menstrual cup is just not the preferred option for a product. In terms of opportunity cost, I think everyone felt that it was very much needed. And then when it comes to self-efficacy, a lot of our participants left Chiedza feeling empowered and confident. But again, this idea of going back into the environment and having to face some of the social, cultural, and environmental barriers did have an overall effect on how far they felt empowered and confident. I think this quote really summarizes it well. I will liken educating clients about the cup as one preaching a sermon. And then you feel like the word is for you, but on your way home, you meet a friend who diverts you from what was preached. When a client goes home with a cup, for example, she will hear another set of information and will be convinced not to use the cup based on the advice given at home. So, a quick summary of our findings. There's a huge unmet need for menstrual health products, for pain management and information across Zimbabwe. And if you are going to address this need, these interventions need to be comprehensive. So they need to both provide information, provide products, and also provide pain management. And when you do this, these interventions can improve perceptions, practices, and knowledge over time. However, in order for it to be effective and sustainable, you do need to have a community buy-in, and it needs to go beyond the individual and address the community at large, and really address some of the social, cultural, and environmental barriers. Lastly, addressing young women's menstrual health needs or health needs in general can be achieved using an integrated model that looks at menstrual health as being integral to one's sexually reproductive health. In terms of recommendations, interventions need to be multi-component, involve community engagement aspect, and overall, menstrual health can be an acceptable pathway to accessing other SRH services for young women. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a recorded presentation that sounded so real. So I couldn't intervene as the chair, but I'm glad we got the message. So I would like us to go to the next presenter, and this will be Dr. Elialela Okello, who is a senior social scientist with the Mwanza Intervention Trials Unit in Tanzania. If I show you this, just know that you have 2 minutes to summarize. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, moderator, for introduction. I think I will go off the video and share my screen.
That's fine.
So thank you again, moderator, for the introduction. I'm going to be speaking about a project that is going on at Mwanza Intervention Trials Unit. This is a collaborative project between Me2, London School, and FEMA International, and is funded by MRC UK. So the aim of the project is to co-develop a scalable, comprehensive menstrual, sexual, and reproductive health intervention that can be integrated into government schools in order to improve menstrual, sexual, and reproductive health practices, overall school climate, psychosocial well-being, and school participation. We have 3 objectives to this project, and the first one is really to refine an existing NGO-led menstrual, sexual, and reproductive health intervention. And the purpose of refining is to make sure that we better engage local government, enhance school component through engagement of boys, and refining the pain management activity, as well as adding a minor wash facility improvement. The second objective is to work with local government. That's why I say it's co-developing, and schools to develop a mechanism to integrate menstrual, sexual, and reproductive health within the schools. And the third one is to pilot the refined intervention in order to assess A, the feasibility, the sustainability and acceptability of the intervention, and B, to assess the effect of intervention on menstrual, sexual, and reproductive health practices and perception, as well as overall school climate. Lucky for me, Jennifer, who is part of the people who developed this model, has spoken about it, so I'll just go over it to save time. So our theoretical basis or theoretical grounding for our research is on this integrated model of menstrual experience, which view resources and social cultural contexts, including menstrual stigma, as determinant of menstrual experience, but also negative impact. So we adapted this model to design our own theory of change, which is exactly what the model was intended to do. And I think we are lucky enough to have the person who developed the model part of the project. So we actually the first one, and we thought this is exciting. But the reason we threw it here is to help you understand that we wanted to share and demonstrate how you can integrate it, how it can be used, but also use and how useful it can be in terms of the capacity of intervention and the theory design. So we began this with an intervention that was being implemented by NGO. So we started out knowing that the original intervention had several gaps. It didn't include boys. It covered limited component. And we knew that we needed to include wash component in it, but also we knew that we needed to strengthen the pain management component and better community engagement. So TWAWEZA 2 includes all what was in intervention in the original intervention, but we have added in pregnancy and GBV prevention. But we are also offering more choices, more product choices. For example, we are providing menstrual cups, but also reusable pads. And in the intervention now, there is provision for more menstrual cup information. We have also included pain management strategies that is stronger, including painkillers, and it's dispensed through school. We have included, so we have now we have included boys, especially in the education session, and therefore we have 2 joint sessions for boys and girls to learn about general things and basics of menstruation. But we have 3 separate sessions, and in the separate session, that's where we focus more on pain management. With the TWAWEZA 2, we are also involving, there is more involvement of stakeholders, including schools, local government, and as I said before, the parents and the boys. So when it came to designing the questionnaire to assess, this was quite tricky part because the menstrual health sector, as you have heard from the beginning of this presentation, lacks standardized tools, but also lack standardized indicators. So we had to do a lot of literature looking around for what other people have used. Lucky enough, we had at least 1 tool, MPNS, that has been, that is standard, but it was too long. So what we did was to cut out the pieces that were long, especially the household context, and just focus on the school. But when we wanted to look at social climate itself, we got some questions from Beyond Blue Climate questionnaire. When we were particularly interested in participation here, but there's no tool for assessing participation. So we defined how we wanted to measure participation and picked question from existing M&E tools. We also wanted to assess, because menstruation has been related to mental health. Therefore, we wanted to actually assess menstrual-related anxiety, and we just adapted the GAD-7. We also tested knowledge using tools that were gathered from other people working in the region. We did WASH checklist, which we picked most of that.
Please try summarize,
most of that
please.
Study from, yeah, I'll summarize most of that study from UNICEF, and we did assess pain. So what we have results that we are not really intending to share, but what we want to highlight is the key finding and the key issues about pain. Pain was significant issue for the girls. For example, 75% of our girls reported to have experienced pain, some of them very severe. More than a third of the girls say they had severe pain. And 34% of the girls actually missed school during menstruation, and 52% of these were because of pain. 43% missed on activities, again, because of pain. So what we are saying here, we need again to think about pain when we are looking at menstrual health for girls. So what are we feeling? What do we think we are making contribution to? Well, we are trying to comprehensively address menstrual pain, and we have incorporated that into TWAWEZA intervention, TWAWEZA 2 intervention. We also use the external facilitators, and we have interesting findings about the external facilitator. Most of the menstrual health education have been delivered by teachers.
Dr. Keller, we have to take only 1 minute and get to the next, please. I'm sorry. Just go to the final key messages and then close,
so the final key messages is we have made some contribution, and I think this slide is available. So please, you're welcome to view it. Thank you, Chair. And I'm sorry for taking too much time.
Don't worry. Yeah, I have to do this so that we all have a chance. Okay, guys, colleagues, thank you very much for that. I won't give a summary in the interest of time. I would like us to take the final presentation, which is actually an extension of what you just started talking about, Dr. Kello, on standards. So I would like to invite the final presenter, Paulson Kasereka, who is a WASH expert from DRC. So let us go to this final presentation and then just have a few minutes also for discussion. So the next one.
Bien, merci beaucoup pour cette seconde occasion que vous m'accordez de pouvoir présenter cette fois-ci la méthodologie d'évaluation des progrès réalisés en matière de normes de qualité des produits de cycle menstruel en Afrique de l'Ouest et centrale. C'est donc la méthodologie que nous avons appliquée pour le rapport qui vient d'être disponible en français, et donc vous pouvez obtenir une copie. Alors, comment avons-nous procédé pour pouvoir faire cette évaluation? Eh bien, la première étape, c'était d'abord eh bien, là, comme je disais, là, la première étape, c'était d'abord de pouvoir faire la revue de la littérature qui a été suivie par des interviews des informateurs clés au niveau global, mais aussi à partir des interviews, nous avons obtenu une littérature, donc des documents que nous avons analysés, nous ont permis d'avoir des informations beaucoup plus précises au niveau de chaque pays. Après avoir analysé les résultats, nous avons élaboré le rapport et avons formulé les recommandations. Et tout ceci s'est contenu dans le rapport que nous venons donc de rendre disponible. Aussi, en faisant la rédaction du rapport et la formulation des recommandations, nous avons fait l'adaptation de la boîte à outils qui est à être utilisée pour le plaidoyer pour la promotion des normes des produits menstruels. Ensuite, un atelier de validation avait été organisé précédemment sous forme de webinaires pour la validation des résultats avec les principales parties prenantes. Et la journée d'aujourd'hui, nous faisons la dissémination de ces résultats par le biais de ce symposium et nous avons donc l'occasion de les faire en anglais et en français et même dans d'autres langues qui sont accessibles ici. Et quels ont été donc les résultats et l'impact attendu? Pour ce qui est des résultats, c'est d'abord la meilleure connaissance et compréhension des normes des produits de santé menstruelle parmi les acteurs de ces domaines. Il y a notamment les acteurs de la société civile, les entreprises privées, il y a les agents des différents gouvernements dans les 11 pays qui ont été ciblés par notre étude. Ça, c'est donc des résultats que nous avons pu obtenir. L'impact, c'est aussi l'augmentation de la connaissance parmi tous ces acteurs. Et si, pour ce qui est de notre appel à l'action, nous demandons à ce que des outils pour la collecte des données liées au suivi et évaluation soient développés. C'est notamment la boîte d'outils que nous avons adaptée. Cet outil peut être amélioré s'il y a des inputs, s'il y a des contributions des différents acteurs. Et donc, cela pourrait permettre de pouvoir améliorer cet aspect. Et donc, nous vous remercions ici tous pour nous avoir suivis. Et nous serons heureux de répondre à toutes les questions qui ont lié à ce rapport, qui concernent ce travail. Et nous pourrions donc donner notre part d'informations pour le progrès du suivi et évaluation liés à la gestion de la santé menstruelle dans les pays de l'Afrique de l'Ouest et centrale. Merci.
Great, thank you very much, Paulson. I think as M&D practitioners, we are also required to keep within time and our commitments. So I see we have only 3 minutes left. I would like to take this opportunity just to, I've seen some responses to the questions on whether people are collecting MEL data, and I see a number of them say no. So I wonder what the barriers could be. So if you could just type in any of the barriers that you have, then please, that would be very helpful. I also saw feedback that the Mentimeter was not working earlier. I hope that it is active and live now. We'd also appreciate your feedback in that particular area. So I think I would check if I don't see any questions outside of those we asked, but I wanted to see a bit more about the barriers to conducting MEL within MH programs, because then that will inform what kind of interventions are required for improvement as we move forward. Just checking within the team again. Jennifer, do you have any additional comments you've seen or any point you want to make as I bring this to a close?
No, not from me. Just please let us know any feedback, especially around the barriers you face in doing MEL, because this is one of the outputs we would like from this meeting. I'm also going to put my contact in the chat, just so if you don't have a chance to answer now, you can email me, even if it's like 3 words, we need money or we need a person. I don't know, whatever that is. Just send that to me and we'll be collating the results and putting out something that brief that we hope will be useful for people. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Jennifer. I think I want to thank each and every one of you here. It's come out very clearly that monitoring, evaluation, and learning is critical for menstrual health programs, but we are not there yet. So what needs to be done? What needs to be done from a technical point of view in terms of designing indicators, building data collection mechanisms, but what do donors also need to do to make this work? I mean, donors and funders of menstrual health programs. So we have quite a bit of reflection to make in this particular area, because I stated when we started this session, what gets measured gets done. And so all the interventions we've talked about demand that we also focus on strengthening monitoring, evaluation, and learning. Thank you all, and hand back over to the organizers for the much awaited closing session maybe. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you, Willis, and all the speakers. That was our last session for today. But still to come, we have our closing ceremony featuring some important recaps and summaries that you don't want to miss. First, however, we're going to take another short comfort break, and we will be back at 4:15. See you then.
I'm Eliza Stewart. I'm 16 years old. I'm a student at Pinelands High School, and I sell menstrual cups in my spare time. The reason I started using a menstrual cup was because of the environmental impact that the waste of pads and tampons had, especially plastic waste in the world and in our oceans is reaching a critical point where we have to make big changes. And then I did some research online and found out about menstrual cups. Most of the people I sell to actually aren't my peers. I sell to a lot of adults, but I do talk to a lot of them about it. But I found that a lot of them are actually quite receptive to the idea. It's getting the parents to approve of their children using it that's hard. I think when anything has something to do with women and their bodies, it's often criticized quite heavily. Embracing my period means to me being able to talk about it to anyone without shame. It means to just be able to celebrate it as like part of my womanhood. So I think we have to shift from using infinite pads and tampons where that we just keep making them and we actually have finite resources, and a menstrual cup and reusable pads. There are lots of different options would help with that in the future.
My first periods, the worst nightmare. In the midnight of my 12 years birthday, I felt something strange. The vagina started bleeding. Don't be surprised. To me, it was a nightmare, though I was not asleep. I thought that very soon I would wake up and that the blood should stop, but it didn't stop. I cried and cried, asking for a help. Mom, please come and help. She quickly came to my room. When I showed her, she just laughed at me. Don't be afraid. You're grown up. This is what we call menstruation. As I have never been at school, as I have never got out of a house, even a single day, to have a chat with my peers, as my mother assumed that a blind girl like me didn't need that kind of knowledge, of course, I should not have had any idea about menstruation. In a blink of an eye, my mother brought me one of her oldest clothes. She cut it into big parts. My daughter, please use this so that you don't make your bed sheets dirty. Remember, I didn't have any skills about sexual reproductive health. I was not taught by anybody to do any kind of self-care. Guess the time my mother came to help to support me to change. 10 hours after. What a bad smell. What a lot of pain. How embarrassed I was. I will never and ever forget about that. Because this is the worst experience I've ever had. But finally, my life has changed. I escaped that terrible situation. Miraculously, I got the support and went to school. I got different skills. I know what menstrual hygiene is and its use. I can make my own money. I can have access to water, buy sanitary pads and soap. But don't assume that this experience only happened to me. Menstrual health for girls and women with disabilities, especially those who are poor and those with severe disabilities, it's a big challenge. We find girls and women with intellectual disability on the street. We even find them in menstrual period. They look weird and dirty, but who cares? We just laugh at them and move on. Those who think that they are merciful, they ask God to stop menstruation for all ladies with intellectual disability. But that's not a solution. They're also human beings. Instead of that, let's stand, join hands, put our voices together and advocate for the removal of all barriers which hinder girls and women with various disabilities to fully access information and products of their menstrual health.
I'm 26 years of age currently now, so I started my menses I think around 15, 16, which I'm not really early and also I'm not late. So what happened is I was in bed sleeping. When I woke up, I was one of those that really sleeps and comfortably opening my legs. You find that the blankets are on the floor. Then my father is one of those that usually comes into our bedroom, checks up on us. I'm definitely sure that my daddy was the first one to see my menses, but because he's a male, couldn't say it. So when I woke up, Tara, there it was. Having to communicate to my mom, already my mom was at work. Daddy saw it but kept quiet, so I had to deal with it all by myself, alone. You'll find that they usually provide condoms to each and every schools or toilet, but there was never a time where women are prioritized. So however, we plead to the government, can you kindly please consider our women, our ladies out there, especially those who are coming from backgrounds that are very poor, that are not okay. Find that individual who will just pad on with a cloth, with a tissue, in which are not really healthy for our body or not healthy for our skin, and also the vagina itself, what is going inside there. And usually you find that that cloth is washed with what? With a soap that is very irritating to the vagina itself. So government, can you kindly please step forward and make sure that all women out there they are in a safe hand, because we are creating other comorbidities. You find that there's gyne-related problems. So you start from an inner or minor age to take care of them once they're unable to take care of themselves. And once we taste that with the little ones, they will proceed and teach others. Then we are on healthy and safe to safe.
Cyclones have had huge impact on women and girls. Most of them lost everything.
Comenzó a subir encima ante la. Enquanto você sair o quê? Coisa de sangue. Assim, quando vem no almadia, assim, sangue.
Another impact is the effect on their own health. If they don't have the means to control their menstrual hygiene, it can lead to infections, it can lead to medical complications, in addition to this difficult situation of managing a natural body function. UNFPA is proud to support cyclone and humanitarian situation affected women through Dignity Kits. More importantly, we feel that when women are exposed to these items, they may actually end up being the leaders in a movement to help destigmatize basic bodily functions like menstruation. When they are exposed to reusable sanitary pads that can improve their mobility, that can improve their ability to maintain their hygiene and their health, they are empowered and they can help empower other women.
I know in my heart and my soul. If you do me jeje, me self I could follow, baby. Oh, if I enter your motto.
Welcome back, everyone. As Stephanie mentioned before the break, it is now time to wrap up this amazing symposium with our closing ceremony.
That's right. It's been an incredible 2 days of engagement and inspiration. So let's hand over to a couple of special guests who will be offering their final thoughts and comments. First up, please welcome Fabrizia Falchion, Deputy Regional Director, West and Central Africa Regional Office, UNFPA. Fabrizia, you are most welcome.
Thank you very much to the moderators and Honorable Mahamat Said Farah, Secretary General, Ministry of Education and Civic Promotion of the Republic of Chad, Honorable Emma Theophilus, Deputy Minister of Information, Communication and Technology, Republic of Namibia, Honorable Gloria Orwoba, Senator for Women, Republic of Kenya, Dr. Chandra Muli Venkatraman, leading the work on adolescent sexual and reproductive health and rights in WHO. Ezinam Amuzu, adolescent and youth sexual and reproductive health and rights advocate from the Republic of Ghana. Mary Grace Sandy, the lead of the Africa Coalition on Menstrual Health. Distinguished guests, speakers, moderators, and participants, good afternoon. I am delighted to join you for this closing conversation of the symposium. I extend my heartfelt congratulations to all of you for engaging in these 2 days of this meaningful dialogue to make progress towards achieving menstrual health justice. As we close, we have an opportunity to reflect on emerging priorities to improve menstrual health as part of sexual and reproductive health and rights in Africa. This African Menstrual Health Symposium builds on initiatives undertaken since 2018, including the Symposium for Menstrual Health in Western Central Africa, which was held in 2021, as a space for dialogue, reflection, and sharing. As pointed out by many of the speakers during the last 2 days, these efforts have contributed to increasing the understanding of menstrual health as a human rights and development issue that is strongly interconnected to the physical and emotional well-being, the dignity and sexual reproductive health and rights of women, girls, and all individuals who menstruate. Menstrual health is at core a question of gender equality. Addressing menstrual injustice is imperative in our march towards gender equality. On behalf of UNFPA in West and Central Africa, allow me to start by expressing my appreciation to the African Coalition for Menstrual Health for the fruitful collaboration with the United Nations that has nurtured this initiative. I would also like to commend the dedicated team of youth leaders for their unwavering commitment. This year's symposium, the theme of achieving menstrual justice through a grassroots and multi-sectoral approach, has been instrumental in reflecting on the stigma, harmful practices, and discriminatory social norms that are associated with over 400 menstruation cycles that women and people who menstruate experience in an average lifespan. Although progress has been made, menstrual injustice persists and is increasing in some cases. Taboos around menstruation remain pervasive, with women and girls too often still seen as impure, dirty, or sinful while they're menstruating, which leads to shame, isolation, and poor hygiene practices. This in turn can put women and girls at risk of gender-based violence, particularly in humanitarian settings where the management of menstruation becomes particularly challenging. And too often, menarche may lead to child marriage or sexual violence because it's a signal that girls are ready for motherhood and sexual activities. Priorities are well known. We need to improve access to comprehensive sexuality education and work on discriminatory gender norms at the root of taboos and menstrual injustice. We need access to safe water, hygiene, and sanitation services. We need affordable and climate-friendly menstrual products. We need comprehensive sexual and reproductive health and rights information and services, and these should be provided in an age-sensitive way because adolescent girls are always the most left behind, including in the field of menstrual health. All these issues should be part of public policies, financing, and delivery considerations to prevent poor health outcomes, loss of economic output, and loss of education opportunities that are all associated with poor menstrual health. The multiple crises, including climate change, forced migration, and conflict, which are dramatically affecting, among other regions, the Sahel, for instance, in our region, further intensify menstrual injustice and exacerbates the drivers and risk factors. In this context, achieving menstrual justice might be seen as unimaginable, but it is not. Menstrual justice can be achieved when menstrual health becomes an integral part of sexual and reproductive health and rights and other interlinked policies and programs. As UNFPA, we will continue utilizing complementary approaches in collaboration with strategic stakeholders to increase multi-layered awareness on menstrual health. This will involve engaging leaders, youth, media, women, girls, and individuals who menstruate to challenge negative social norms. Strengthening partnerships with men and boys and religious institutions. This is required to expand our network of allies who can contribute to the shift in transforming the deep-rooted social norms and cultural practices that harm menstrual health, and sustaining our commitment to all girls, women, and people who menstruate in their diverse contexts. This should be done through close collaboration, system strengthening, and capacity development of forefront actors, including those at the grassroots, to amplify the voices in support of menstrual justice and to hold policymakers accountable. As I end, allow me please to say that menstrual injustice is pervasive, but not inevitable unless we stay silent. Menstrual injustice is everyone's business, and there will be no gender equality until menstrual injustice is addressed, because menstruating with dignity is a human right. We need to balance awareness raising with effective responses that take menstrual products, sexuality education, and sexual and reproductive health and rights to the last mile. And on behalf of UNFPA, I would like to acknowledge with deep appreciation all contributors and partners, including the governments of Chad, Eswatini, Ivory Coast, Kenya, Namibia, and South Africa, and development partners such as the Muskoka Fund, Swiss Development Cooperation, the Swedish International Development Agency, and the Embassy of the Netherlands, and others for having facilitating efforts to make menstrual health a reality. We remain committed to strengthening our partnership with the Africa Coalition on Menstrual Health and to support governments, civil society organizations, activists, girls, women, and people who menstruate, because this is a human right and an imperative for accelerating progress towards sexual and reproductive health and rights and the development of the African continent. And I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Fabrizia. Our next speaker is Esinam Amuzu, Adolescent and Youth SRHR Advocate, Ghana. Esinam, we look forward to your input.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I plead to kindly stand on all existing protocols, and so all protocols observed. Now, with over 300 million young women and girls across Africa are celebrating one of the most significant days in history today. And I want to say one last thing before we close the door on this year's Menstrual Health Symposium. I want to remind us that we have all said so much. And as a team, we have really not minced our words regarding our collective efforts in support of menstrual justice for girls, women, and all individuals who menstruate within our continent. A million and a special appreciation to all those who during the symposium shared their amazing works and the journeys from their various countries. I say thank you for going the extra mile to ensure that we leave no one behind in our pursuit for safe and dignified periods for girls. And I know that it has also been a place to learn and share our experiences from our different countries. But before we go, please permit and let me highlight a few key areas from the perspective of a young woman or an advocate in Africa. That must remain our priority and has to be on the list in the years to come before we meet again on what to do. I first of all want to say that the effects of climate change on menstruation is real, or they are really real. The world is changing, and the impact of climate change limits our abilities to have hygienic periods due to limited access to clean water. And that really impacts sanitation when we talk about menstrual health for girls. As well as it is important to consider how we dispose of menstrual products in a responsible manner if we are to protect our environment and talking about climate change. Finally, also, we need research to understand the experiences of women and girls in climate-affected and emergency settings, and that will inform the appropriate policy and program decisions moving forward. Secondly, I want to say that menstruation with its current stigma and taboos fuel mental health for adolescents and youth. Without sexuality education, the stigma surrounding menstruation and the taboos are overwhelming for girls, especially regardless of the level of formal education, income status, or wherever they find themselves. This can lead to missing school, poor performance, low self-esteem, and fear that one has abnormalities simply because of delayed or more frequent or more painful or heavy periods. These misconceptions have mental health repercussions, and with stigma, we cannot really discuss our challenges with our parents or even teachers sometimes. And this resonates with a lot of us when we were young. With comprehensive sexuality education, however, we know that we can combat these issues. And so let's live here reminding ourselves, or let's remain more conscious that girls deserve better and provide them the comprehensive sexuality education they need. Also, let's know that menstruation is not cheap, and we have said it here over and over. Access to safe water and the cost of menstruating still pose a barrier for many girls in our region, and this cannot be overemphasized. For example, for some boarding school settings, rationing water, hence affecting their hygiene in schools. Girls from low-income settings need not just to menstrual or do not need just access to menstrual products, but even enough underwear. Also, the cost of making reusable pads of nationally accredited standards is so high for young people. Let's not forget that low-quality products leave us sick. Finally, taxes on menstrual products remain high in various countries, and advocates like myself remain few. Dear champions of menstrual health justice, tomorrow and the days following, more girls and young women will attend school because you sat together, because we all sat together, trying as hard as we can to make menstrual health a reality. Do not give up on us. Do not give up on the many girls that look forward to what we do. As for me, as a young person and as a young woman, I remain motivated. I remain more challenged. But most importantly, I'm inspired by whatever has inspired here in this symposium. And for that, I pledge to continue offering my leadership and advocacy in my country and wherever I find myself to make menstrual health justice a reality for all. What about you? Thank you and over.
Thank you, Isinam. It is now my pleasure to welcome our next speaker to stage. Please give a warm welcome to Chandra Mauli from the World Health Organization, Geneva. Chandra, the floor is yours.
Greetings from the World Health Organization. It's a pleasure to be with you. Hearty congrats to the African Coalition for Menstrual Health Management and to all the other people involved in this symposium. Here are some key messages aligned to the 5 themes of the symposium. Firstly, we agreed that naming and framing menstrual health is important. Menstrual health underlines that this is a health issue with the right spaces. A discussion of menstrual hygiene suggests, looking good, smelling good. And so we need to use the word hygiene as we've argued in this paper published 2 years ago. There's a strong rationale for placing menstrual health within the context of health and rights, as the young woman from Ghana just reiterated. 5 themes aligned to the 5 themes of this symposium. The next one is integrating menstrual health into sexual and reproductive health programs and policies. In this slide, I've given you an example of how menstruation has been addressed in the just updated Family Planning Handbook, a global handbook for providers. In every area of sexual and reproductive health, we must make sure that health service providers use a menstruation lens to make sure that they do not forget the implications of menstruation in relation to contraception, abortion, maternal health, sexually transmitted infections, and so on. The second, again, as this young woman from Ghana reiterated, including menstrual health and puberty education for both girls and boys in comprehensive sexuality education. On this slide, you find the international technical guidance for both in-school and out-of-school education developed by a number of UN agencies. So this speaks with one voice. And I have included an extract from the international technical guidance, which contains very precise information on menstruation. And this is taught to young children, in the 9 to 12 years age group, so that they enter girls enter puberty with a good awareness of what is going to happen to their bodies, and boys are also fully aware of these issues. The third point, again, it comes back to something that Isnam mentioned about cost and about access. The whole world is talking about universal health coverage. In September, there's going to be a high-level meeting on universal health coverage. And universal health coverage means countries ensure the provision of a package of health services to everyone in the country, irrespective of their ability to pay. We in WHO have included menstrual health promotion, prevention of menstrual health problems, and response to menstrual health problems within the context of universal health coverage. And we have made a commitment in the UN Water Summit this year to support countries to include menstrual health in their universal health coverage plans, so that this doesn't remain as a project or an afterthought, but is central to a program. The fourth item is emergency preparedness. We've all been watching the horror stories of what has been happening in Ukraine and the huge explosion in Sudan. From one day to the next, two madmen fighting and destroying a country and, leading to people fleeing in all directions. And in this context, as UNFPA has clearly indicated in this document, we need to pay attention to the needs of girls, women, and other menstruators in the context of these crises. All these documents are available online, and we'd be very happy to make them available as a package to participants who are interested. The last point, and I participated in this interesting session on research and on monitoring and evaluation, and one of the speakers talked about the study from Kenya, which demonstrated that provision of sanitary pads alone does not increase school attendance. So what we really need is good quality research which addresses the myths and misconceptions that people have and provides accurate information for decision making. In the chat, I put down a number of indicators developed by Marnie Sommer and group on indicators for menstrual health programs. Please have a look at them, and we'd be very happy to support you in applying these indicators. I've also included a paper that we published with a number of African researchers on sexual and reproductive health research and research capacity strengthening in Africa. We want very much, WHO working with partners, want research priorities set by African countries and research carried out by African countries and research papers published by Africans, so that we don't have, we can talk about decolonization, but we have to show decolonization in practice. We need to have Africans deciding on their own research priorities and not necessarily carrying out multi-country studies that others have identified as priority issues. I close with this quote. By virtue of gender and other social inequalities, many adolescent girls in developing countries are at risk from a whole range of problems. Girls are discriminated against and marginalized even before they are born in some context with sex-selective abortion. And this continues through childhood, through adolescence, through adulthood, and even in the context of elderly care. So our fight against menstrual stigma and neglect is very much part of a wider fight on gender equality. Thank you very much, and greetings from WHO. I want to close with a personal reflection. I'm from India. I'm 65 years old. I grew up in a loving, caring South Indian family. My parents always told us they didn't have a lot of money for us, but they would give us a good education. They gave us the best education possible, but they never talked to me about sexual and reproductive health. I talked to my sister about menstruation. My mother was not allowed in her bedroom, in the kitchen, in the prayer room when she was menstruating. I knew instinctively that this was wrong. For 15 years, I have worked in WHO on menstrual health. And we in WHO salute UNFPA and the Africa Coalition for this championship. And you can rest assured that we will continue the struggle with you. Namaste and goodbye.
Thank you, Chandra. Our final speaker is Mary Grace Sande, Lead Africa Coalition on Menstrual Health Humanitarian Uganda. Mary, take it away.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm Mary Grace Sande once again. And in the interest of time, all protocol is observed. A big thank you to all speakers, presenters, moderators, and participants in the Africa Coalition for Menstrual Health Virtual Symposium 2023. We have received the presentations from the Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights Team Roundtable on integration of menstrual health in human rights, the Research, Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning Team on how to support menstrual health programs with research and data collection to ensure the right information, menstrual product usage and coverage are reached, the product standards and value chain and water sanitation and waste disposal team that has examined what governments and organizations have addressed since 2018 on all avenues, how to integrate period investments in the manufacturing industries, and what will benefit the grassroots needs. The education team searching for an opportunity for inclusion of menstrual health training in the education sector for sustainability and program ownership, and the humanitarian settings, climate change and resilience, looking at ways of saving the environment and climate change effects on the humanitarian settings to enable menstruating persons to regain their confidence where there is little or no privacy while menstruating, making sure that we do not leave anyone behind. The best practices so far and what works have come out openly, and I'm sure we all have one or two takeaways from the roundtable discussions and PowerPoint presentations, as menstruation is a God-given right. How do we work around the effects of social, cultural norms and economic issues that are never ending, that keep menstruating persons stigmatized and dependent? We are departing from the heavy city life to the unheard voices at the grassroots and communities affected by natural disasters and conflict. How do we protect the environment, focusing on disposal and destruction? How do we ensure proper infrastructure in schools? How do we give sufficient information pertaining to changes in menstruation at different stages of life? Research work needs to be heightened to ensure ownership of programs and efficiency in utilization of resources. It is this effective monitoring, evaluation, and learning that will support the players' advocacy to governments to include menstrual health funding in the budgets and policy. The same will enable adolescent peer educators to support upcoming generations. Indeed, Alisa Lau, one of the speakers, cautioned carrying out research in collaboration with government priorities and agenda. Our enthusiastic applause to those governments that are already implementing this. While addressing the standardization and accessibility of menstrual health products to the majority of users, our hearts cannot stop imagining how despicable the lack of dedicated sanitation facilities and availability of water will remain a challenge to the grassroots girls, women, and people who menstruate until friendly laws are enacted for sustainability. Imagine a good number of menstrual products are supported by underwear. How then do we customize them to work where knickers are not part of normal clothing? I was intrigued by Monica Ferro's equation to the effect that menstrual health dignity is equal to human rights, and she was advocating for a resolution on this at the Human Rights Council. After this virtual symposium, we are all lobbying and advocating for reaching out to the grassroots girls, women, and people who menstruate to have as many standardized products with good choices. And in the next 2 years, we shall be proud to be walking a confident menstrual journey. I do conclude by expressing deep appreciation to the Africa Menstrual Health Coalition leadership, UNFPA, who always stand by us non-stop, the grassroots organizations, Man-Made, the event management company out there, you did a great job, and others for the tireless work that has made a memorable day in our quest for equity of menstrual health. Thank you very much, everyone. Over to you, David.
Thank you to all our concluding speakers. That brings us to the end of the Menstrual Health Symposium for 2023. We trust that you found the content interesting and empowering. Let's keep working together to make real changes to the lives of women and girls across the region.
Absolutely. We really are stronger together, so let's keep with each other. All the content that was featured over the last 2 days, along with other valuable comms, will be made available to you. So keep an eye out for the details from the organizing committee.
All that remains is for us to thank all our moderators and speakers, and let's give a big round of applause to the organizing team who put this whole event together. We see you and acknowledge all the hard work that went into creating such a successful meeting.
We'd also like to thank the technical team who are working tirelessly behind the scenes to make sure everything runs smoothly. We really couldn't do it without any of you.
And with that, it's goodbye from me, Stephanie Ndlovu, and my co-host, Daniel Hansen. We both wish you every success in your future endeavors.
Yes, thank you to all for participating in this vitally important show. We are now going to play with our amazing LPS. Enjoy, and until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Me, I know to like you for my, so now you I want to show my mama, cause I'ma put you in a brand new bima. She go like be my shima. Every little thing you did do to me, it's sweet to me for body. She a loving fee follow me. Wow, 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 wow. Yeah, your bullet make her go crazy. I'ma get see you sure for me. Say make her withdraw money. Oh, man, no good and great. Make a carry your luggage. I define you for this. For this, I know trust.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I hope you had a great conference. My name is LPS. I am supported today by Zeus, and we are just going to entertain you for a couple of minutes. Let's have some fun. Hey. Sing along from wherever you are. This is an old-time goodie. When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, stand by me. Oh. by me. Stand by me, stand by me, stand by me. Oh, oh, oh. Just as long as you stand by me. If the sky we look upon should tumble and fall, and the mountains should crumble to the sea, I won't cry, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Just as long as you stand by me. Whenever you're in trouble, baby, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Just as long as you stand by me. Oh, 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 oh. Just as long as you stand by me. Well, that was a golden oldie, and we hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to come to something a bit more recent. It's South African, and it's from Freshly Ground. We're going to do Doobie Doo. I'm sure there are a lot of you that know the words to this one, but let's have some fun. Sing along. I can hear a couple of you in the crowd. Here we go. Did you hear the news on the radio today? People have agreed to give their love away. I can't wait to be there in line. Oh no. And politicians have agreed to honor and obey. They'll come out and listen to what the people say. I can't wait to be there in life. Oh no. Said I can't wait to be there in line. No, no, no. Oh no, no. Oh, doobie 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 doo. Bye. Ba 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 da. Ba ba da. Doobie 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 doo. Bye. Ba ba da. Ba ba da. Children will play in the streets, loving everyone they meet. Open heart will be the rhythm of the day. Neighbors will greet each other, sisters and the brothers, even enemies will come to be friends. Oh, I can't wait to be there alive. Oh no. And I can't wait to be there in line. No, no, no. Oh, no, no. Oh, doobie 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 doo. Bye. Ba 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 da. Ba 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 da. Doobie 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 doo. Bye. Ba ba da. Ba ba da. Say you want to live in love and kindness every day. Say you know the meaning of love. See every person that you meet as every you and every me. Then I'll know you'll know the meaning of love, love, love. Oh, I can't wait to be there in life. Oh no. Alright. Said I can't wait to be there in life. No, 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 no. Oh, doobie, 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 doo, ba 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 ba. Doobie, 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 doo, ba 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 ba. Okay, cool. We're gonna teach you a little step that you guys need to do for us. You know, get active, even though it's online, doesn't mean you can't join. So let's have some fun. We're gonna do a little step, very simple. It's just clap and stomp your feet, but we'll show you. Here we go. And if you hear what I mean, clap and stomp your feet. If you hear what I mean, clap and stomp your feet. If you hear what I mean, clap and stomp your feet. If you hear what I mean, clap and stomp your feet. Okay, are we ready? I'm sure everybody's got it now, so we're gonna do it all together. All right, here we go. And if you hear what I mean, clap and stomp your feet. If you hear what I mean, clap and stomp your feet. If you hear what I mean, clap and stomp your feet. If you hear what I mean, clap and stomp your feet. Oh, yeah. All right. Say doobie, 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 doo, bye. Doobie, 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 doo, bye. Doobie, 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 doo, bye. Thank you. So the next one we're gonna do for you is, of course, because it's such a brilliant day, it's a great event that we just had, so we're feeling good, so we're gonna sing about it right now. So let's feel good. If you know the words, please sing along. Oh, oh, people. Oh, 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 oh. I just wanna feel good every day. I wanna wear a smile upon my face. I wanna hear the joys of the day. I wanna feel alive in every moment. Said I won't waste time on feeling blue. I won't waste time on things I cannot change. I'm gonna live this day as best as I can, doing everything that feels right, singing la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la la la. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la la la. I wanna feel the joys of the day. I wanna feel a hug from a loving friend. I wanna hear I love you every now and then. I wanna show somebody that I care, 'cause feeling good is a choice that we all make. Just like a smile, a small effort you make. I'm gonna live this day as best as I can, doing everything that feels right, singing la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Oh, people, feel a burst of joy within my soul. La 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 la. La 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 la. Feel a burst of joy within my soul. Oh, oh. Thank you.
It's views. See, I just came back from Ghana. Really? And I want to share this dance that everyone was doing over there. QB tried to show me how to do it. He sat me down in this place. And he said to me, views. Nobody wanna see you rising. And when they do, they don't even like it. They just wanna see you deep in crisis. Drive yourself, you don't need a license. Holler her, she can even ride it. Go ahead, move your feet just like this. Then he showed me the latest. We walk over them haters. Now what you do, man, azonto, azonto, azonto. Now watch me do my azonto, azonto, azonto. Now watch me do my azonto, azonto, azonto. Now watch me do my azonto, azonto. We walk over them haters. Now what you do, man, azonto, 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 azonto. We walk over them haters. Now what you do, man? They all wanna learn how to do this, so I'ma take you right through this. Azonto dance is the movement, so when you jump on the floor, better use it. First step is a step. You can move to the right, to the left. You can even freestyle when you step. Put your hands in the air, then you rap. So go. Twist your fingers, you can wave and say hello, low. Make a fist, then you can hit them with that blow. No balance, that's how you do my zo. Let me see you go. QB taught me this. Nobody wanna see you rising, and when they do, they don't even like it. They just wanna see you deep in crisis. Drive yourself, you don't need a license. Holler her, she can even ride it. Go ahead, move your feet just like this. Then he showed me the latest. We walk over them haters. Now what you do, man, azonto, azonto, azonto. Now watch me do my azonto, azonto, azonto. Now watch me do my azonto, azonto, azonto. Now watch me do my azonto, azonto. We walk over them haters. Now what you do, man?
Sorry, sa azonto. Wait, yo. Ain't men you go slow. Me when in a two blow. Move to the rhythm, here we go. I'll show you how to do this. So, some mensa, menkasa. Up across on the south side. Move to the left and right and watch me free. Azonto. All my ladies strike a pose and free. Trafoto. Drop it low and make the boys say damn. Kosombo. Freestyle it the way you want to say. Uchimo.
What you do, man? Azonto, azonto, azonto. Now watch me do my azonto, azonto, azonto. Now watch me do my azonto, azonto, azonto. Now watch me do my azonto.